Hassan, I'm with you, but you are on that platform. I deleted that SS shit Twitter BS years ago. Yes, brother. Someone's got to get in the fucking dirt and roll with these piggies, okay? I'm that someone. I'm that guy. That's it. I don't, like, when have you ever seen me pull away from getting into a knife fight like this? You know, I just sat through it. I pushed through it, and we're so close to the finish line. We're so close to see the light on the other side. And the reason why I say that, I mean, is because that's my background. Like I don't. A lot of people take for granted, I think, how like popular socialism as a term has become in like the last decade in the United States of America. Because like when you were talking about socialism in the pre-Bernie universe, right? In the pre-Bernie universe, socialism was just like the oldest, crustiest dudes you've ever encountered, and maybe like random people who were really, really nerdy and really invested in this shit. Like it wasn't. This is, the internet was an unimaginably hostile environment for anyone who is even remotely to the left of the Democratic Party or dared to explain what their politics look like as socialism or communism. So, given that that was the background, like being at the Young Turks from like 2013 onward, when the entire commentary sphere was hyper right wing, all the way up to like white supremacists, right? The entire right wing was dominating the YouTube sphere, all the independent media sphere in like 2013, 2014, 2015. All of the edgy atheists had turned against Barack Obama because Barack Obama was a secret Muslim and he was doing too much to basically defend Islam. He was maybe even bringing Islam to the United States of America, all the stuff that people were saying, which was very racialized and totally ridiculous, had created an incredibly right-wing environment, right? And at least now, in this day and age, even when woke goes away and anti-woke has its moment in the spotlight, as it has for like the last 3-4 years, there's some brothers and sisters out there, some people that have been able to push back a little bit so you don't feel so lonely. So never forget, if you match where we're at in comparison to where we used to be, I think things are a lot better. In some ways, they're a lot worse, but, I'll take it. All right, let's blast off and let's get it fucking started, because it's Monday, it's MLK Day. Obviously, we'll be talking about MLK's legacy as a democratic socialist, or for all the ultras out there, he was a social fascist, obviously, because he wasn't revolutionary enough. That's my new guy is third worldist, calling MLK a social fascist who wants modest reforms in the imperial core. Open presence, thank you for the 100 gifted subs. Yeah, he wasn't pro Viet Cong enough, and therefore he was actually a social fascist, because he was like, he would talk about democratic socialism, he would talk about socialism, but like the extent of his leftist MLK haters are so weird. No, that's not a real thing. Most leftists at least have the wherewithal not to shit on Martin Luther King. Come on now. In the building later. MLK Day. His legacy in 2026. Trump readies troops for MN invasion. Greenland mania over, Nobel Prize. Regime change in Iran. Count Abu Ghazali in the building later. Get in now. Who are these MLK hating leftists? I just want to talk to them. That's not a real person. I'm inventing a person by joking, comparing the modern commentary that a lot of people have to It's a joke, okay? It's a joke. Just know it as a joke. How about that? That's all it is. It's a joke. But I saw so many people in Arky's Twitter com saying how much they enjoyed the collab. We need more fun. Yeah, for sure. No, it was a great time. I had a great time. You're in Middle East Observer, don't lie. What? Erdogan calls out Israel? What did he say? Turkish President Erdogan. I'm confident with wisdom my Iranian brothers and sisters will overcome the treacherous Israeli-backed sedition that targeted the country's social peace and stability. At Middle East Spectator. Yeah, Erdogan is yeah, Erdogan is pro-Iran now. He's pro-Islamic Republic. That's the funniest joke anyone's ever told in this broadcast. Here in Norway, we can finally get a valid excuse to break off from the U.S. and join the Sino-Motherland Alliance we wanted all along. We just need Xi to make Russia a province first. I think Norwegians are not doing that. That's what I think. I think Norwegians they are so libbed up, dude. They're so libbed. All the Euros are so libbed up. I know you guys in here are not, and maybe you can report on it and tell me if I'm wrong, right? But from my estimation, I just don't see any European leaders like even taking the Mark Carney step, right? Like Mark Carney, I think is a smart guy. Do I agree with his worldview? Of course not. I mean, he is a banker, right? Like he's a banker. He is going to be someone who maintains a neoliberal mechanism of order in Canada. That's definitely what he's doing. But at least he's like seemingly a more competent guy than like Keir Starmer is. And obviously like what he did by going to China and like fixing the Canadian-Chinese relations and, you know, allowing visa-free travel to China and bringing in EV fleets to Canada. Like all this stuff is good. It's smart. I haven't even seen that level of motion from European leadership at this point. So like, and they should have done this on Liberation Day anyway. This is, if I, a 34-year-old dumbass on the internet, can see the writing on the wall from a mile away, you think these guys can't? I don't think it's incompetence. I think it's ideological blindness. The European Union has suckled on the teat of American empire and the post-World War II order and have found themselves in this beneficial position because all of the politicians that run these countries are just as rugged and vulgar in their pro-capitalist stance as Americans are. Sure, European leadership has the benefits of social democracy, born partially out of its proximity to the USSR, the threat of a scary, better alternative, right? Was part of the reason why there were modest reforms in the country. So you have that, but it's going away. And the same people that have run these countries have the exact same ideological vision as the toothless, feckless Democrats in our country, right? And obviously painting in the entirety of Europe with this broad brush is silly because there is Spain. And I don't know if it's a mere aesthetic posture in the direction of China. But I think European nation states in the upcoming years will either have to recognize that they have been completely vassalized, not dissimilar to countries in the third world, or fascism will win. You know what I mean? Why do you invite these Dems and libs to your stream then? What? Bro's going to invite a Democrat? What? What are you talking about, dude? First of all, Cat's Palestinian. You know what I mean? Yeah, I still want to push the party to the best of my ability in a direction that I think is better for organizing, better for labor organizing, better for revolutionary organizing, if that's, you know, what you're invested in. Yes, I mean, don't ban them permanently, but at least give them like a week off for that take. Yeah. I didn't read it because I think it's gross to say that out loud like that. Hey, Hasanabi, not trying to do a gotcha, but why do you use the term third world? Is it just easier for audiences to understand? Yes. Also, the third world, or the negative connotation associated with the third world, is actually a Western invention. Like, third world just means aligned with the Soviets, as opposed to, like, it just means the global South. It's a Cold War statement. It's a contextualization that is from the Cold War, or not aligned with the Soviets. Sorry, non-aligned. Or the God, well, I don't know what's wrong with me. Second world is Soviet alignment. Third world is neutral countries, but just means like global South. Wait, it's alignment, not development? Yes, that's where it comes from. It comes from the I guess initially is it comes from Yugoslavia, right? The originator of the non-aligned movement, despite being organized as a socialist state. Tito, Yugoslavia forever. Why use third world instead of global South? I just use it interchangeably. I don't shy away from using certain terminology because it's like it has like a negative connotation associated with it. Like I don't care. It's like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the distinction between Indian versus Native American. You know, it's not as bad as like Latinx versus Latino, where it's just like something that I choose not to ever use, Latinx, right? Because it's silly. It makes you look silly. It makes you look out of touch. Okay, but it's one of those things where that's a slur. What's a slur? Oh, Latinx. It doesn't, like, the language holds power for sure, but as long as you know where I'm coming from when I'm talking about these things, I don't think it matters all that much. I'll use terminology that I think everyone can understand. Why say third world when the second world no longer exists? Exactly. That's why. It's a catch-all term. It low-key drives me crazy that some extreme progressives do not understand that we need some level of decorum and centrism. Like, obviously, we want massive change and expansion on social structure over the liberal fence sitting, but turning to all-out chaos or civil war is what they think it's going to be. You genuinely need some level of civility. Wait, what? No, I don't know what you're saying. Rare Hassan L on the take Latinx. Wait, what? You can't be the one loyal soldier of super woke in 2026 still defending Latinx, right? Like, you know what it reminds me of too? Like, another thing is like when you say homeless and someone goes, excuse me, someone devoid of home or like unhoused, it's like, dude, stop. Like, come on, please. Like, I'm not, like, please. It's one of those things where, like, I know you're not wrong, but that's just not how language works. That's not how you can make the most effective message. Like, you're not wrong. In theory, I understand where you're coming from because you are a firm and committed believer that, like, the language that you're using also has power in it, right? Right? But I'm a marketer. Like, my job is to market. My job is to market the positions that I hold, you know? And oftentimes I think trying to sanitize language unironically ends up making you look out of touch. It makes you look out of touch. Utilizing regular terminology that the broader base of support uses is good, you know? All right. We're going to get started with Trump's Greenland threats. What Mark Stone learned from Washington insiders, ladies and gentlemen, or I guess no, this is the new list. China warns U.S. on Greenland. Stop using the China threat. I had the playlist already ready to go, Themasius.
Ready, clear.
China warns the U.S. on Greenland. Stop using the China threat.
Verified our positions on Greenland multiple times. The international law based on the purposes and principles of the UN Charter.
Do you hate the Kurds because you're Turkish? Where did this come from? Also, I'm American. If there's one country that hates the Kurds, or at least fucks over the Kurds just as hard as Turks, or rather utilizes the Turks to fuck over the Kurds, it's the United States of America. Talk about Rojava. I already said I'm going to talk about it. Why does he make an inference like that? Because he's a fucking baby. Okay? He's a stupid ass baby. That's why we are dying. Okay, take a week off. Okay?
The foundation of the existing international order, it must be safeguarded. We urge the U.S. side to stop using the so-called China threat to use.
Dang, a week seems a bit harsh. Okay. You take a full perma then.
As a pretext to gain selfish gains.
European leaders pushing back against President Trump's latest threat.
Nothing more annoying to me than motherfuckers who come in here while I'm like, well, I already have like a run of show in mind. And then they just come in and go, no, you have to talk about this thing right now. And if you don't talk about the thing I want you to talk about right now, that implies that you're actually secretly harboring resentment, like ethnic resentment towards a group of people that you have defended over and over again. But it doesn't matter in this very moment because I'm going to get a fucking clip off here and then continue along with this propaganda campaign to make it seem as though you're like a fucking anti-Kurd Turk. I'm going to lean into like racialized narratives because obviously you're Turkish. So therefore, most people are already ready to either catch you in a hypocritical position because you're an anti-imperialist or rather lean into the racist ass fucking sentiment about how you must clearly hate Kurds. It's just incredibly fucking annoying. It's incredibly annoying. We're not playing that game, you know? It's just you're not being productive at all. You're just being a fucking lame ass. Shut up. Shut your bitch ass up. Okay? This is not a fucking democracy in here. There's always going to be back and forth. There's always going to be an open forum. But if you piss me off, I will turn into Stalin. Okay? I will just fucking clap you. Okay? I need you to understand that. Because we can't have a normal, productive discussion. We cannot have a normal, productive discussion if you are constantly fucking derailing. Shut your bitch ass up. Okay? I'm going to cover what I'm covering, and I'm going to get to it eventually. Don't make me put you in the fucking gulag. This is why he's a commentator and not a politician, folks. No politician should ever do a Twitch stream anyway.
On America's closest allies, escalating his demand to acquire Greenland. Trump now warning 8 key NATO allies, including Denmark, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, that they will face tariffs, starting with 10% in February, until a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. Nearly 30 European ambassadors holding an emergency meeting Sunday. Allies now flocking to Greenland's defense.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure.
Dude, Big Dick Daddy Starmer. Oh my God. I'm always thinking to myself, whenever there's like any sort of geopolitical conflict going on, I think to myself, what will my goat Kid Starver say? Because you know he's gonna crack the whip. Okay, he's gonna lay it down. He's gonna lay down the fucking law, baby. And I can't be alone in this, right? Like, chat, you guys also probably think like, you know, what will Keir Starmer do again? Like, he's such a revolutionary, you know. He's gonna come out and he's gonna say, I've been monitoring the situation from afar and I've been waiting on Daddy to tell me what to do. He's a real mover and shaker. Him and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are my 3 goats, okay? These guys are the real anti-imperialists out there, okay? None of you know. What did you think anti-imperialism was? Tweets? Academic papers? No, you're looking at it, okay? This is real resistance. This is coalition of the willing. This is how you fight back against the American empire, by coming out and not even taking like a stern approach at all, just coming out and having the most lukewarm take that reinforces what everyone knows already, okay? You are, like, I can't even call him Chamberlain. Yeah, exactly. Like, Neville Chamberlain unironically had more motion than Keir Starmer. He is The Lion of London. Exactly. He is the Lion of London. Okay. Oh God, he's so fucking hot and so cool.
Greenland's defense.
He just always has such a good approach to these sorts of things. He'll be like, Lion of Londonistan. They'll be like, Mr. Starmer, Israel has killed 100,000 Palestinians, and new reporting shows that the Royal Air Force was actually providing cover and offering new targets as Israel was conducting a genocide. And be like, we will be looking into this, and we will be issuing a stern warning to the Palestinian babies. Okay, they should have they should not have been under the laser guided munitions if they wanted to survive. Have they thought about not being Palestinian? This motherfucker is always looking into shit. He's got a busy job, dude.
Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
The French president calling the tariff
Can he do that? Guys, can he say that? Can he say that? Completely wrong. Bro, he's getting real crazy, dude. He's going mental. That's a real mic drop moment from Kid Starver, dude. Wow. He's really done it now. Trump, any moment now. He has begun the process of thinking about issuing a sternly worded letter, a warning. Of course, only thinking about beginning the processes of what might be in that letter, a concept of a plan, if you will.
It's unacceptable. Sweden's prime minister saying we will not let ourselves be blackmailed. Only Denmark and Greenland decide on issues concerning Denmark and Greenland.
Okay, then what should he do? Deny visas to American travelers, say that you're shutting off the American embassy, immediately do reciprocal tariffs, immediately call up Xi Jinping and say, "Sir, I'm going to commit to much better trade relations with you." There's a bunch of things. Just fuck it, dude. Just go crazy mode. I mean, Trump is going crazy mode. You might as well go crazy mode in retaliation for Trump going crazy mode. Because, like, guys, Donald Trump is talking about invading Europe. Like, that's it. Like, if he's gonna be a freak, you gotta match his freak. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Because people will go, oh, well, Hassan, these guys don't want to rock the boat. That means like more instability. You're inviting more instability. America's crazy. And it's like, yeah, exactly. It's kind of the same principle behind like what Trump is doing at the domestic front, right? Where Donald Trump is greatly escalating the tension here and even talking about potentially utilizing the military, calling the Insurrection Act, all this stuff. Like, these are unprecedented times. And people will go, oh, don't do anything. Like, don't do anything in retaliation. Like, you're giving into what he wants. And it's like, but he's already doing the chaos. Like, if you think this will lead to unprecedented lawlessness and disorder, well, we're there already. If you're living in Minneapolis, you're experiencing it every day. Your neighbors are afraid to go to work. Your neighbors are afraid to take their children to school. There's a fat Gestapo agent in every goddamn corner that's heavily militarized and seemingly has a license to kill. So that is already chaos, lawlessness, and disorder. So it's here already. So you must fight against it. Like, you must do something, right? Because if you roll over, it's just going to make it easier.
His allies already sending military forces to Greenland to protect against the U.S. hundreds rallying on the Arctic island over the weekend.
We are not interested in being Americans.
But Trump isn't backing down, adamant.
Every time I hear someone say that, it's funny every time. Every time. Because it's like a fate worse than death is to be American by force. It's true. It's true. I know there's so many patriotic Americans out there who like don't understand this, but like if you live in a country that has like at least existing social safety nets and stuff, why would you ever want to be under the thumb of America? I mean, look at fucking Puerto Rico. Look at Puerto Rico. Like, look at what has happened to the island of Puerto Rico under the watchful eyes of American ownership. It's so stupid. Like, of course people don't want to lose the benefits of not being American while also still simultaneously being under the security apparatus that America has designed if you're in Europe. Because like there are plenty of other places in the world where they're like, well, if we're a part of America, then yeah, things are better overall, right? There are plenty of countries in the world that we have destroyed and dominated that if we were to like bring in to like American statehood, things might be things might get to a market improvement as opposed to where they were, but only because we've destroyed them. But at least for a European country, right? If you are on the European continent, like you are one of the very few places that America has not like directly destroyed. And therefore, you're like, no, I don't want this. I don't want to ruin things. I don't want to ruin things further here.
That the U.S. needs control of the island as a matter of national security, and he's not ruling out using military force to take it. Greenland and Denmark have already offered to increase security in the region, but the administration says that's not enough.
If there were an attack on Greenland...
A poll in the Netherlands today revealed people are more afraid of Trump than Putin. Imagine that. Oh my God. Finally, dude. Finally, people are fucking like waking up. Oh my God. This isn't to say that Vladimir Putin is not a threat, by the way, but like, it's not even a question. Like, this is what I've been saying, guys. This is what I've been saying, and European liberals have been laughing at me and yelling at me over. Okay. It has finally gotten to a point where Donald Trump is literally doing like Vladimir Putin shit from the Western flank that Europeans are like, wait a minute. Actually, this is not good at all. This is very, very bad. I didn't realize this. It took 1 year, law. Putin has been doing his thing since the fucking Cold War. Exactly. The Okinawa effect. Okinawa literally had its urban design screwed by American occupation in comparison to the rest of Japan. Yes. Brother, trust me, regular Euros have been woken up. It's the leaders that are slow and dragging their feet. I don't know anyone who's here like, fuck yeah, Trump. Yeah, you don't know anyone who's around you, and that's something that I stress all the time, because they're all watching Asmongold. All of the Euros that are LARPing as though they're like American right-wingers, which is such a strange position, but they exist. They're called fascists, and ironically enough, the like when you're a fascist, you're supposed to be like promoting this sense of like national sovereignty, right? Like at least historically, that's what fascism was about. This idea that like there's this national mythos, your people, your ethnicity, or your religion is like above everyone else's, and like and therefore you're fighting for the sovereignty of your nation. We used to be a proud nation. All this stuff. Nowadays, the international fascist movement is whatever the American fascist movement is. Like they get their notes from America, which is ironic because y'all invented fascism, right? And sure, you took a lot of notes from America in the invention of European fascism. Let's be real. Adolf Hitler basically was stealing our fucking, Jim Crow laws and death and destruction of the entire indigenous population when he was like writing his own version of what ethnic cleansing was going to look like in Germany. But having said that, the assumption here, at least historically, is that like Europeans basically, perfected their own version of fascism. And yet now Euro fascists, ironically enough, they've like molded into this weird, like, American MAGA style version of fascism, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, there is this international consortium of fascists now. Okay, it has become an internationalist movement. It's no longer, people aligned with one another. Like, fascist movements align with one another by by need, but more so, the entire ideology is very Americanized, and it's genuinely shocking. Yeah, I mean, this is what I was calling out last night. I think it makes sense given the prevalence of U.S. culture exported via social media. Yeah, but to be honest, these Euro MAGAs are the dumbest people to ever exist, and nobody takes them seriously, at least in the Netherlands. It has been for years, but that's just the thing. When I ranted and raved about Steve Bannon in like 2020, nobody cared. Now they do. I hope the liberals are waking up. I really, really hope that the liberals are waking up. But it is funny that, it's oxymoronic to think about having an international ultra-nationalist movement that is entirely about a political movement and political goals and a political ambition of another country that will inevitably make you a vassal, like further vassalize your country. That's what's so strange about this, because like internationalism under the traditional socialist movement makes a lot of sense, because the idea is that we are all united on our class position, right? Like it's totally normal. It's totally normal, and historically that's how the USSR operated as well. It makes sense that socialism is an internationalist movement. It kind of doesn't make sense that fascism would be an international movement, because fascism is ultranationalism. If I had a nickel for every time Hassan stole my joke, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't much, but it's weird it happened twice. Stole your joke. I just pulled you up to give you praise for your take. What the fuck's wrong with you? Anyway, it is very strange, though. Like I said, it is very, very, very strange.
From Russia, from some other area, we would get dragged in. So better now, peace through strength, make it part of the United States, and there will not be a conflict.
The U.S. already operates a military base in Greenland, and a long-standing treaty allows the U.S. to expand its military presence on the island.
The only security threat to Greenland right now is the United States.
Even some Republicans fear the president is putting the nation's most important alliance in jeopardy.
If he wants to purchase Greenland, that's one thing, but for him to militarily invade would turn Article 5 of NATO on its very head, and in essence, put us at war with NATO itself.
Like, listen, I'm in a very weird position here, because on the one hand, I do want America to greatly scale back its mechanism of control and dominance around the world, and NATO plays a formative role here. So Trump blowing up NATO to a certain degree, I hope will push Europe to demand sovereignty. Right? I really, really want that to happen, because I think that it will be objectively better for the world if Europe had a level of sovereignty from, American dominance. It would, at the very least, make things easier for socialist movements to grow in European countries in the same way that I hope a socialist movement can grow in the United States of America, and has been growing at least to a certain degree. Okay? But if you are in any way, shape, or form invested in like American hegemony around the world, then the NATO Atlanticists are right. They're just right. I'm not invested in that at all. I think that's been a cancerous entity in general. It's been a cancerous alliance that has greatly allowed America to do whatever it wants and kill so many fucking people, kill countless people, right? And has ripped away the opportunity for Europe to develop its own, like, maybe reformist, democratic, socialist movements, right? Who knows what that would have looked like in the absence of NATO? But for me, this puts me in a unique predicament, because on the one hand, he's killing NATO, even though I don't think he will, because that seems like it just doesn't seem to be in America's interest at all. Like, it would ruin the military-industrial complex. Like, it comes with a lot of penalties for American capital owners. So unless he has his own guys that that believe that they can make money regardless. I don't know. But killing soft power was also stupid because soft power plays a role in continuing these alignments as like security cooperations rather than military invasions. So he did that already. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. But then again, if you recall, last time I got a prediction very wrong, it was with Vladimir Putin. And why did I get that prediction very wrong? Now, of course, my haters will say it's because I'm a Putinist or a Duganist or whatever the fuck, right? But the reason why I got that prediction wrong was because it was not a sound move by Vladimir Putin. Okay? Just like Donald Trump's invasion of Venezuela, which, you know, let's say is a special military operation because he hasn't like fully committed to an invasion yet, even though the carriers and the strike teams are still surrounding Venezuela. But like what he's doing in Venezuela is just insane. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. Because if foreign policy is uniparty, whether it's a Democrat doing it or whether it's a Republican doing it, right? And the goal overall is to project power around the globe and you know be the domineering force, the hegemonic superpower. And that is usually what the goal is for you know both Republicans and Democrats to continue that process. The NATO Atlantists are right in the way that they have designed the system, whether it be U.S. aid and soft power initiatives, destabilizing countries, utilizing these like civil society organizations and NGOs, you know, sanctions to cripple the economy and the really cause a ruckus and destabilization in these places, only to then have your own guys on the ground due to all of the fucking soft power initiatives that you already implemented, go up and take up arms and do a revolution, right? Like there's a reason why it's not working in a place like Iran, because Iran is like so shut off from the rest of the world that it's much more difficult to activate people on the ground. And I don't know. I don't know what Donald Trump is doing here. I don't know what Donald Trump is doing as far as like entertaining the invasion of Greenland, because it just completely rips apart the NATO alliance. Or I guess for him, in his mind, this will solidify to all of the American allies of Europe that America's the big dog and you have no sovereignty. Where will that go? I don't know. But one thing I have seen, and if you recall, during Liberation Day, one of the things that I talked about was the xenophobia and the anti-communist sentiment that European leaders have, right? And how I said this is the reason why they have a lot of resistance to aligning with China in any way, shape, or form, even though China, right now in this day and age, is the manufacturing hub of the planet with an economy that is geared around consistently manufacturing products for everybody else, wants to maintain global trade stability as opposed to the United States of America that is like very clearly breaking it apart, so that these guys are supposed to align with China or at least leverage their relationship with China to tell America that they need to stand down. But the only restraint there was the fact that they're terrified of communism and they're terrified of China. Donald Trump is so unstable that it has caused European vassal state leaders to maybe reconsider that relationship now. It certainly caused Mark Carney to do so, right? Mark Carney going to China and normalizing relations with China and opening up new avenues of trade with China is Mark Carney seeing the writing on the wall, okay? The question now is whether European leaders will also recognize that. But I suspect that he thinks it's, I suspect that Donald Trump thinks this is a game of chicken. He is, in some ways, not a very complex man, especially when it comes to trade and when it comes to like deal making in general. He is very simple and he's very like simple-minded, right? He's like, America's the greatest superpower on the planet, 800 military bases that we know of, all these aircraft carriers. We can be anywhere all at once. We can dominate whoever the fuck we want. So might makes right, and I will just entertain this game of chicken against my allies over and over again, and they'll give in. So we'll see. We shall see if this game of chicken works. Here is defense editor of The Economist with a similar assessment. Right now, a real risk of spiral. Europeans who are already using unprecedented language, blackmail, intimidation, threat, refuse to back down or push back with retaliatory tariffs. U.S. then expands coercion from tariffs to security. Could start by suspending weapon sales for Ukraine and halting intel sharing again. Then step up to actions directly hurting NATO, such as withdrawing select forces from Europe. The admin believes it has escalation dominance and that Europe will fold. See Besson interview yesterday where he gloated over European dependency and risk of Ukrainian collapse. Then there's also some in the admin who believes a step back from NATO would be healthy and desirable. Easily the most serious crisis in the transatlantic relationship in either Trump's 2 terms, perhaps since Suez. Do you see? I think they're playing chicken, and their gamble here, their bet here is that Europe backs away. That Europe says, yes, you can do whatever you want. You can take Greenland. Do you see? But what does that mean? Like, if Europe allows America to take Greenland, then America takes Canada. Okay? At least, I don't know. I feel like if Europe is like, okay, you can take Greenland, fuck it, then yeah, okay, Canada's next. You know what I mean? Maybe the UK is next. Like, I don't know. I don't know anymore, right? The last NATO defender was right. Dog. What I'm trying to explain to you is that NATO robbed Europe of its sovereignty. This was a concept that at least like Charles de Gaulle understood, right? And other European leaders understood initially. NATO robbed Europe of its sovereignty by really leaning into the anti-communist fears. And now Europe needs to make its own security agreement separate from America, because now Donald Trump is doing what Europeans were fearful that the USSR was going to do to Europe. If the whole purpose of NATO is to lean into the anti-communist Red Scare fears, fears that the USSR will overtake and, move their tanks all the way into Berlin and, move past it and go to France and go to England and like take over and make the, greatly expand the Soviet states. Right? If that's the fear that Europe had, well, okay, now we're making it the United States. Instead of the Soviet states from your eastern flank, now you have to, for the first time ever, sincerely worry about the United States from your western flank. Yeah, motherfuckers were scared of the wrong red. You guys can take the UK. Literally, no one would complain. Take France with it, please. Look, there's still people doing this. Do you know what the USSR did to all post-Soviet countries? Of course we like NATO. It's not communism versus capitalism. It's having your whole family sent to the gulag. When I hear stuff like this, okay, of people still relitigating the USSR, okay, in 2026, as we are mere seconds away from America overtaking Greenland by force, it kind of makes me feel like you deserve what's coming next, okay? Like I don't know what to tell you. Like you're still worried about the wrong red, brother. That red don't exist no more. Like you're worried about your wrong flank. Lock in. It's crazy to me. Joe Biden might live long enough to see NATO disappear. I mean, I guess, yeah, there's one thing. Stop laughing. It's serious. I can't help but laugh at a guy who, while we're discussing America invading Greenland by force, okay, a piece of the European continent by force, he's still going, well, remember historically when all of the Eastern Bloc nations were under the control of the Soviets? Like, what the fuck are you saying, dude? What are you saying? Yeah, okay, that's a good joke. Yeah, the red you should be worried about is called Red 40, okay? It's a chemical dye that's going to basically disrupt your hormone production because you're getting it. Like, you're going to get the red hats, and you're going to get the Red 40, and you're going to get the super cancer, and you're still worried about the fucking Soviets for some reason. Jesus Christ. Russia is literally attacking Ukraine as we speak. USA becoming this terrible threat doesn't negate the other threat. He says as Russia takes Ukraine, okay, you're on your own. I mean, good luck, chatters. Good luck. Good luck to all of you. I'm not even talking about like Russia's overtaking of Ukraine. Okay. First of all, Russia's not the USSR. Secondly, you're getting fucked on one side from Russia, but on the other side, you're getting fucked even harder from America. And you still think that that's not happening. That's my point. My point is, if you think that like, oh, Russia is doing the USSR and all this shit, okay, at a time when Russia is overtaking Ukraine by force and America is overtaking Greenland by force, you have to look for alternative alliances. We about the Eiffel Tower, you Euro cucks? Yeah, I know. I think mostly everyone in the EU is very aware of what America's doing. I think there's still if I were to ask people in Europe, if I were to poll people like, who do you think is like scarier? Like, what do you think is a bigger threat? Until recently, they said Russia. It's only until recently that they changed that to the United States of America is now a bigger threat. And of course, that's partially because America did not ever entertain invading the European continent by force until Donald Trump. But now it's actually now it's polling, and at least according to one of the chatters in the Netherlands and in the UK, that like they are treating Donald Trump as a bigger threat than Vladimir Putin. But the reason why I say I'm in a weird predicament is because I want Europe to have sovereignty. I want European people to be able to liberate themselves from the same exact unjustifiable constructs that have been ruining their lives under capitalism. You know, hyper exploitation and the destruction of social safety nets that they had. And no longer their capability to no longer have like the same quality of life that they once had. All of this stuff is a direct byproduct of not only capitalism but also defended by this NATO allegiance. So I think like breaking NATO apart is not necessarily the worst thing, unless Europe is able to maintain sovereignty by seeking out different partners, at least different partners to leverage their relationship with the United States of America. Because like, yeah, bro, just say China. I mean, I say China all the time. From the Financial Times, EU leaders and their delegations who are set to meet Trump and U.S. officials at the World Economic Forum starting in Davos today are tearing up their Ukraine briefing notes and replacing them with what one senior EU diplomat described as carrots and sticks. How Brussels could retaliate against the tariffs alongside offers to de-escalate. How can you sit down across the table with this guy and discuss the security guarantees the Ukraine, the diplomat added? You can't trust them unless you suspend reality. I think people should have understood this by now. America and Israel are basically the same, okay? They only respond to force. They only respond to pressure. That's it. So you have to pressure us. I'm telling you, in order to save yourself, in order to preserve some semblance of sovereignty, which you really haven't had for like, you know, in the new design, it was only sovereignty in name only. It was this aesthetic sovereignty. But in order to like actually get sovereignty, you have to push back on us. Okay? That's it. We only respond, just like Israel, we only respond to military. Israel only responds to military deterrence, and America only responds to economic deterrence and pushback. Okay? That's it. We're fucked up. If we're doing might is right politics, you have to also be mighty. Cut our treats off. Punish us.
Now, the president's new tariff threat comes as the Supreme Court could hand down a decision on whether or not the president's sweeping tariffs are legal at any moment, possibly as soon as tomorrow. Now, the White House insists the president has the authority to impose these kinds of tariffs during a national emergency, but pressed on what kind of national emergency justifies tariffs on European allies, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent saying, quote, the national emergency.
Bro, this guy's still talking about the Baltics, bro. Oh my God. Oh my God. You know what would happen to the Baltics without NATO? Brother. They're taking Western Europe. Like, what Baltics, dude? You're over here talking about the Baltics. First of all, NATO doesn't give a shit about the fucking Baltics, okay? You're just cannon fodder. You're cannon fodder. You are cannon fodder. Please. If Russia had a more powerful military, you would learn about how little NATO gives a shit about all the Baltics, okay? Or at least America gives a shit about the Baltics. But once again, you're just a buffer zone between the countries that actually matter versus the only country that truly matters, the United States of America and Russia or the USSR. Yeah, you're basically just a fucking missile sponge, and you're over here talking about the Baltics when America is taking Western Europe. Get real.
Is avoiding a national emergency. Rebecca.
Well, and that will be a highly consequential Supreme Court decision. Thank you, Mary.
An extraordinary new development in President Trump's push to take over Greenland as European leaders meet to discuss an emergency response to his new tariff threat. The president sent a letter to Norway's prime minister, according to a diplomat who's seen the note. He wrote in part, quote, "Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give you
I can say, like, this is one of those unique moments for sure where I can tell you sincerely that like a Democrat or any other Republican really other than Trump would not be taking Greenland. Okay? Like normally I don't entertain these sorts of hypotheticals. I don't entertain these sorts of hypotheticals because they're unproductive, they're stupid, but this is one of those things where you can actually say with almost absolute certainty that this would not be happening. If there was like Marco Rubio is a fucking war hawk and a psycho, and he definitely would do the Venezuela operation, perhaps even worse than the way Donald Trump is conducting it so far. But he definitely would not be taking Greenland. Okay? Like, and he also would not be sending letters to the Norwegian prime minister to fucking turn around and be like, hey, just so you know, I'm doing this because you made it so that peace was not as good for me because I was the great peaceful president and you didn't give me a Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, this is a really funny. I mean, this is also another testament to how goddamn cucked all of these animals are. Here it is.
We need someone with judgment and the temperament to keep this country safe. I don't know anyone who would be comfortable with someone who behaves this way having his finger on the button. I mean, we're liable to wake up one morning and Donald, if he were president, would have nuked Denmark. That's not...
10 years later, partially because this cuck also helped him out, we're there.
Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus. I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. CNN's Melissa Bell joins us live from Paris this morning. The Prime Minister of Norway now saying, yeah, that's the letter I got from President Trump talking about the Nobel Peace Prize. It's a pretty remarkable development.
It's a remarkable tone that struck in that letter, Dear Jonas, that fit of pique almost at not having received the Nobel Peace Prize used as justification for all that we've seen over the course of the weekend. And that is, John, this extraordinary ratcheting up of this pressure on Europe to try and force them essentially to hand over or sell Greenland to the United States, which is an extraordinary turn of events that now tariffs should be being used at this particular moment to try and exert pressure on Europe. And that timing is really unfortunate, John, for a number of reasons. First of all, because in front of European lawmakers was due this week the very deal that was signed last summer to avert a trade war between the United States and Europe, the trade deal that sets American tariffs at 15% and that prevents the European Union from imposing levies on the United States. What we understand now is that European lawmakers are not going to pass that deal as a result of these renewed threats of fresh tariffs on European Union countries. What that means is that if the deal is not agreed upon, the retaliatory 93 billion euro worth of European counter tariffs that had been threatened at the time before the deal was reached would come into effect in February. So really what you're seeing is the European Union preparing to answer very forcefully after a great deal of outrage expressed over the course of the last couple of days as a result of the...
Dude, it was a text message. It wasn't even a letter. Statement from the Prime Minister of Norway. What does Knut think about this? Does he now think this guy is crazy? Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre regarding communications with President Donald Trump. I can confirm that this is a text message that I received yesterday afternoon from President Trump. It came in response to a short text message from me to President Trump sent earlier on the same day on behalf of myself and the President of Finland, Alexander Stubb. In our message to Trump, we conveyed our position to his announced tariff increases against Norway, Finland, and select other countries. We pointed to the need to de-escalate and proposed a telephonic conversation between Trump, Stubb, and myself the same day. The response from Trump came shortly after the message was sent. Never use an accent again. These accent impressions are so good. How often do you practice? The duality of chat. It was his decision to share his message with other NATO leaders, said Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre. Norway's position on Greenland is clear. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Norway fully supports the Kingdom of Denmark on this matter. We fully support that NATO, in a responsible way, is taking steps to strengthen security and stability in the Arctic. As regards to the Nobel Peace Prize, I have clearly explained, including to President Trump, that is well known. The prize is awarded by an independent Nobel committee and not the Norwegian government. It's like I'm in Norway right now. Yeah. Do accents, but never Scandi accents. Okay, everyone getting up in their fifis knows that that's a perfect Norwegian accent. Trump told NBC News that Norway's lying. Trump won't say whether he would... wait, what? Trump won't say whether he would use force to seize Greenland. Trump dismissed the idea that Norway has no sway over the Nobel Peace Prize competition. Oh my God. Oh my God. He literally... Dude, this kind of stuff, for me, when I see this kind of stuff, where I'm like, oh, come on. Like, Donald Trump is not being that petty. He is not that much of a petty tyrant. And then there's additional reporting that comes out that confirms that he is absolutely that kind of a petty tyrant. And like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like, when the first story came out that Donald Trump had a back and forth with the Norwegian leadership on this, I was like, there's no way. This is so stupid. Like, come on, this got to be like a liberal exaggeration. Okay? This got to be liberal media doing, not Trump derangement syndrome necessarily, but like they're being a little silly, right? Like, they're being a little crazy. Like, it cannot be because Donald Trump is genuinely butthurt that he didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize. So then the Norwegian Prime Minister comes out and says, no, actually, that is a real conversation that took place. And then Donald Trump confirms it absolutely is a real conversation that took place. And he doesn't believe that the Norwegian government has no sway over the Nobel Peace Prize, confirming the suspicions that we all had. What is happening? What the fuck is going on, man? Look at this. Wait, what is this? Demonstration protest in front of the American Embassy in Denmark in support of Greenland from my friend Dan. By the way, this is just how people in Denmark look. They actually are the happiest people in comparison to, on the happiness polls, on happiness metrics, they're far happier than Americans. They just look that way all the time. This isn't even because they're just mad at America, okay? This isn't because they're mad at America. They just look like that all the time. They are very happy. They have, Store and get appoints the members of the Nobel Committee. Brother, I don't care if Norway... You're missing the point. Chatter. The point is not whether the Norwegian government has sway over these decisions or not. The point is, that is an impossibly stupid reason to rip apart a long-standing security alignment that America has eaten good off of, that basically has allowed the military-industrial complex to become this behemoth that it is. Who cares about the Nobel Peace Prize, man? What are you talking about? They gave it to fucking Machado. The government before this one appointed them, Høyre. Okay, again, I need you to... It doesn't matter if it's directly this current prime minister or the previous one or the previous government was making these decisions unilaterally, that's so stupid. It is utterly irrelevant. The Nobel Peace Prize is basically as worthless as the FIFA Peace Prize, okay? Especially considering who they've given it to or how many people that they've given it to have ended up doing their own version of ethnic cleansing. Clearly it's irrelevant. It doesn't mean anything. The peace side, at least, right? I was so off with my accent, by the way. It's an award given by a Norwegian committee. not the Norwegian government. I'm happy to repeat that. But I do believe, I've always thought, we're very focused on the Peace Prize. That's not a bad thing. It means they're interested in doing something that qualifies them for an award that's about peace. But it's not something I make decisions about, and that needs to be emphasized. You said he knows it, but he doesn't. Why do you think he uses the Peace Prize in this way? You'll have to go over there and ask him. I can't answer that. Yeah, I speak Norwegian, by the way. Have you replied to the message? No, I haven't. He ghosted him. He ghosted our big, beautiful boy. Norway's next. Norway's next. I guess we got to take over Norway. That's it. It's over. You left him on red, bro? Are you crazy? Bro, don't say that. I live there. Yeah, GG's oil rich. Oh, my God. Oil rich nation that has nationalized its extraction industries? Are you fucking kidding me? It's over. It's fucking over. Norway is next, dude. Stop giving him ideas. I'm not giving him ideas. The leadership is. Greenland is just a test. He wants Greenland so he can use it as a staging ground to invade Norway. Oh my God. He's going to rename it to Our Way. Oh no. Oh, Jesus Christ. Get ready to eat so many burgers, dude. Bro is going to share a cell with Maduro. As a Swede, please do. Bitch, if we're taking Norway, we're taking Sweden too. Fuck you mean? Y'all already took the worst time to join NATO. I can't think of a worst possible time to join NATO as a country. Think about how ginormous of a fucking misstep that was. You join NATO, okay, because Brandon comes in and says, we're gonna do the NATOization of Finland. And you fucking turn around and you join NATO, and then Trump is like, yeah, well, guess what? It's burger time, okay? No more social safety nets. We will replace your healthcare with burger. Every IKEA will be selling hamburger. No more of that Swedish meatball. I've heard it's Turkish anyway. I've heard that the Turks invented the meatball. Who would want that? You want to take the meatball and squash it into a burger-like substance. Every Swede will eat burger from this day on. Naya, I went to the phone call with him yesterday about these issues along with the Finnish president. And it just wasn't possible. I suppose I signaled that we will think such a conversation will be wise. How will you respond to this message? I've already responded to that. I still believe it's wise to talk. I'm likely traveling to the Davos meeting where Trump will be present, and I'll have a chat with him then. Like the Venezuelan opposition, Europeans believe that it's really about the Nobel Prize at their own peril. Trump is just doing a classic mafioso power move. Say that the Don is very unhappy with this disrespect and you need to come up with a way to please him. Yeah, I mean, I do agree with this, by the way. Yes, Matt Petty is correct. And he is usually very correct. He's got very good assessment in general. I'm thinking the Norwegians should take the hit for the team and give Trump a super duper special Nobel Peace Prize. They can revoke it and damnatio memoriae him in 3 years. Yeah, it's not about the Peace Prize. It's not. He's just throwing shit at the wall. It's not just like it wasn't about Maduro's dancing. You know what I mean? It plays somewhat of a role, but it's not the major thing. It's not the real reason. It's just he's just annoyed with that, and he's just saying yeah, fuck you. You already fucked me. Bro, are you finally going to move to Canada? We're getting Chinese EVs. I know you're jealous. Also, your accents are racist towards Norwegians, and as a Canadian, I've experienced this many times here as well. Why would I move to Canada if I could just directly move to China? I mean, I think the smart steps for China would be to vassalize every single Five Eyes nation, with the exception of the obvious one, right? Australia is already a vassal state. It's half owned by China, half owned by America. And considering that Australia is in China's backyard, right? If we're using American style terminology here, Donro Doctrine and then Xi Jinping's very own doctrine, Australia becomes a part of China, right? And then Canada is the reverse Cuban Missiles crisis for China. America tries to utilize Taiwan and Japan, but specifically Japan. And then China uses Canada against America. All of those EV fleets that they can command just start driving to the American border. If we do take over Canada, do we have to keep the French or nah? You have to. Get a Canadian citizenship, then go to China with your new free visa. I don't think Canada is going to be giving me a citizenship anytime soon. Let's be real. Can we send XQC back to mainland France, though? I mean, I don't want to punish the French any further than we're already fucking punishing them. They already have to deal with Macron, who sucks. Like, you know, I don't know. I mean, I guess the accelerationist in me would think that if we sent the Lion of Laval to France, then people would be so grossed out by American sovereignty and American actions that they would, like, La France insoumise would get, or is that how you say it? I don't know. But France en bas would get like 100% support. France would be, LFI would be fucking, LFI would be busting out the guillotines. Insoumise. La France insoumise. You're wrong that we get hypnotized by the worm and vote XQC. Trade Macron for XQC. That's a good trade. I know that inside of you is an avid Hearts of Iron 4 player. This entire assessment just reinforces that notion. Let him out, Hassan. He's screaming. Okay. All right. Let's continue with this.
These renewed threats. The reimposition, therefore, of retaliatory tariffs being prepared even now by the European Commission, even though officially what we've heard this morning from the Commission spokesman, John, is that Europe is looking for de-escalation. They're looking for compromise, dialogue and negotiation, even as they prepare for these very forceful tactics. And beyond the imposition of these frozen retaliatory tariffs lies the possibility of what's been described as the bazooka option. This is the Europeans' anti-coercion tool, which would see an even greater number of limits placed on the United States' access to European markets. So a ratcheting up of the pressure, but a ratcheting up as well of the response, even as negotiation is sought, John.
Yeah, talking in ways they really just haven't before. Melissa Bell in Paris this morning. Thank you. With us now is retired Major General James Spider Marks, our friend. He is the head of...
This is my favorite. Guys, we're back. We're back. We got spider rapists in the building. And now we're tuning into retired General's spider rapist.
Geopolitical strategy at Academy Securities. And Spider, how does something like this land overseas? All these European leaders now and officials have been meeting, trying to figure out how to deal with the United States on this issue. And then they see this letter about the Nobel Peace Prize to the Prime Minister of Norway.
Yeah, it doesn't land very well. I mean, when you look at policies like this, or at least moving in this direction, the potential of embracing some type of a policy, I think many would say why it's being done makes sense. The United States should have a much more enhanced relationship with Greenland.
The lore behind me calling him spider rapist is because, like, a lot of American generals have these, like, you know, Hideo Kojima ass names. So I just greatly exaggerated one time before knowing that there was a major general named James Spider Marks. And then, you know, I just kind of ran with it. Like, that's just, yeah, Mad Dog Mattis. Like, there is a bunch of guys, like, whose names are just, like, insane.
Albeit we have one established in 1951, an agreement that allows the United States to have military access, and it kind of essentially, in my terms, provides cooperation between those two, one autonomous nation or autonomous entity to Denmark and the United States. So that can be identified and say, yeah, this is a good deal. But when you look at how the president in this administration is addressing the possibility of enhancing that gets very problematic in my mind. I think, cutting to the chase, the United States is not going to use military power to embrace Greenland or move.
Don't predict it, General Spider. Don't predict it. Look, I've made this mistake. I know in your mind you're thinking, well, sound analysis, logic, and reasoning implies that Donald Trump won't do such an insane thing. Okay? I'm just saying. I've been there, okay?
Greenland in a direction more favorable toward the United States. And again, we already have a favorable relationship. Let's not harm that. But provocative language like this really gets our allies moving in a direction of hazarding what's going to happen to NATO if the United States suddenly...
He's a real analyst, though. Brother, I don't think you understand. Having the background or the experience of, like, you know, conducting wars at the behest of America, American empire, and trying to apply logic to what Donald Trump is trying to do right now is fucking stupid. And I have always maintained the position that you cannot ascribe irrationality to state actors, okay? Because there's always a logical through line. And even non-state actors as well. Both non-state actors and state actors clearly still operate on like some kind of logical through line. The problem here is Donald Trump doesn't really do that, okay? I mean, with Venezuela, we saw a version of this, right? You're just not applying the right logic. No, there is not like a super... If the higher priority is to maintain American hegemony, and that's what's supposed to be the fucking highest priority for, you know, the American president, then everything that he is doing is objectively illogical, irrational. That's why I keep saying, like, as someone who is in this like unique position where I'm not a NATO Atlanticist, I don't want American domination and American, you know, global war to continue. Like Donald Trump is actually doing that right now. He's moving in a way where he is actually crippling American empire around the world. Just like I always said, you know, he's basically doing things that is allowing for the Chinese century of prosperity to come much faster. I mean, we're already in it, but I think it's telling that we haven't gotten a actually Twitter thread from Vance or any kind of statements of support from like Rubio or Graham about the Greenland bullshit. He's really just gone rogue on this one and no one knows how to talk him out of it. So what I also want to know is like, how is Asmongold navigating this treacherous space? Because given that most of his audience is like European MAGA hogs, most of his audience is like Euro hogs that LARP as American MAGA guys, but they also kind of don't like that Donald Trump is like embarrassing Europe. I suspect that he's just not talking about one of the biggest news stories of the week, right?
Says, okay, this is more important. Greenland is more important. This course of action is more important than our relationship to NATO, and NATO will atrophy. It'll become something entirely different than it is right now if the United States is not a part of NATO. So you can connect those dots pretty quickly.
Yeah, let's drill down on that last part you were just saying there. Do the rules...
My guess is he'll side with Europe. Yeah, he will. He knows where his bread is buttered. So considering that the majority of his audience is European, as opposed to the majority of my audience is American, it's ironic that he's supposed to be like the patriotic pro-America guy, and I'm supposed to be the unpatriotic un-American guy, but his audience is all fucking European. My audience is all American. He has to take this position where he can't actually defend Donald Trump on this issue because his audience got very mad and pushed back on him when he first said, yeah, it's based. How do you know his audience is European? He's polled his audience.
Rewards from U.S. control.
It's okay, Hassan. We think you unpatriotic enough. Brother, the concept of patriotism should not be measured by how fucking stupid or how violent you want the nation state to get. Okay? It's a silly metric. It's an entirely stupid metric. That's why I say I care about people. I care about human beings. I don't care about nation states. I don't have any sort of like nationalistic fervor. I only match state performance off of how well they've done by their poorest. Okay? How much have they improved the lives of regular ass people? That's it. You and Asmongold are the same two fucking American shitbag. Judging by your logs, you seem to bounce between hate watching Hassan, Asmon, excuse Nico, etc. Why do something else? Anything else? This is really sad. That's pretty funny. Just a guy who hates like every Western streamer and just goes into all their chats. He's an equal opportunity hater. I respect it. What is this? Asmongold on Greenland?
Because Greenland isn't for sale. Well, why is it not for sale? Why do they not want to sell it, right? I mean, because like that's an interesting question. Why would Denmark not want to sell Greenland? I mean, Denmark is a relatively well-off country, but like, why would they have this territory that, you know, it only has like 50,000 people in it? And why would they not want to sell that territory if they think it would be beneficial, right? So yeah, they're negotiating, exactly. Everything's for sale, absolutely. And like, yeah, I mean, I'm not even arguing you should do it, but like, I mean, shit, Greenland doesn't want to be sold. Well, I mean, I don't know if Greenland does or doesn't want to be sold on. Honestly, but you know, like there were, like from what I saw is that there was polling that showed that the majority of Greenlanders actually would want to have independence, but they view that independence would lower their standard of living, and so they don't want it. So they would want independence, assuming that the standard of living maintained. So I don't.
How does that have anything to do with America? That's independence from potentially Denmark. The argument here is about whether Greenland should be sold to America or not. It is utterly irrelevant.
I don't even really think that's necessarily true, but you know, who the fuck knows? The locals want it. I mean, some do, some don't, right? It's complex. And is Greenland really obligated to sell Greenland? I mean, Denmark, are they obligated? I don't think so. I mean, I'm just talking about it. But yeah, I don't know really why the fixation on Greenland is happening. I think it's important, sure. But like, as I said, I just think that we have so many.
Yeah, it's not so based, is it? When your audience is entirely MAGA dick riders that love LARPing as American MAGA, but American MAGA ends up treating Greenland like it's fucking Venezuela, all of a sudden it's not so based, it seems. How come? How come this guy who has defended pretty much every single incursion that Donald Trump has made is all of a sudden taking a very different, much more restrained stance? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not so based to take over Europe. Yeah, is that a recent clip? I suspect it is, because initially he did say it was based, and then his subreddit fucking exploded. He said, yeah, it's based. It's super based to take Greenland. And then his subreddit fucking yelled at him and was like, Asmongold, I'm actually a European MAGA supporter, and I don't like what you're saying. Why would you be saying that, you stupid Americanish? If we are not Venezuela, we are not Iraq, we are Europe, yeah? Why would you say this? Not good. And then he quickly had to find like a Asmonfold moment. It quickly had to find like a reasonable middle ground here, you know? Don't make fun of me. So now he has to take this now he has to climb on this fence to present this like reasonable approach to Donald Trump's incredibly unreasonable and completely insane treatment of every country. The difference between me and a lot of people in Europe, of course, not like the MAGA, European fascists, but like even the rest of like European liberals who might think that it's totally appropriate. He had to apologize for calling for an invasion of Greenland.
I'm gonna throw you a bone, okay? I'm gonna throw you a bone, and I'm going to offer something that is extremely rare. I'm gonna offer an apology. I didn't know that Denmark has done so much to help the United States. Somebody gave me a list of things that Denmarks and Danes have done in coordination with the United States, especially in the Iraq War. I think I underplayed you guys. I did. I was being an asshole. I was wrong. The truth is that you guys have been a great ally to us. And
that's the only reason why America shouldn't be invading Greenland, because the Danish actually helped with its intelligence consistently. And also because they were also there for the invasion of Iraq. Okay.
As I said before, I don't really agree with us taking Greenland, but hopefully maybe we can buy it. I don't want us to take Greenland from you guys, okay? So somebody did link me that, and I do want to say that, okay? Because I try to correct myself. I was wrong for saying that.
How many Danes? It's not just Danes, it's Europeans. European right-wingers love what Donald Trump is doing around the world, but they got a taste of Trump's medicine for once with Greenland, which obviously denies European state sovereignty. It's a very dangerous predicament. So they very quickly were like, whoa, we don't like that. You can't treat us like we're fucking brown. What are you doing? We're not a brown country. I know we have a lot of refugees, yeah, but that doesn't mean we're actually truly a brown country. You know, that type of attitude kicked him real quick. And then they obviously yelled at him. And then he had to back away and be like, not based, actually. Greenland, overtaking Greenland, not based.
I was being an asshole. I got caught up in the moment. I shouldn't have said it. You guys have been a great ally. And I would not want to take Greenland through military intervention, even if we could. I think it could happen, but I don't think it should happen. There it is. So, yeah, if that's the thing you're talking about, then I'm on.
Asman pivoting like an NBA 5. Yeah, this is another not so rare, not so unique Asman Fold moment. Yeah, he went from, based, America first, Greenland is ours now, get fucked, to getting yelled at by his audience, to folding into submission and saying, maybe it's not so based, actually. Yeah, this is what happens when you get all your opinions from your Reddit, your chat, and your Twitter feed, right? Like, he doesn't actually have any real well thought out opinions about what this means for the global design. He doesn't have like any sort of ideological conviction. He's not even like a fucking NATO Atlanticist or anything. You know what I mean? He's not like at least when, you got guys at the American Enterprise Institute fucking yelling at me, like, that's their job. Their job is to literally yell at me because I am ideologically not aligned with their worldview. I'm against it. I find I find NATO to be a security I find NATO to be a protection racket for the American military-industrial complex, which obviously harms Americans at the domestic level, but more consequentially, I think harms everyone else around the world, and it robs Europeans of their own sovereignty and decision-making. So I'm anti-NATO, and I've been yelled at quite a bit for having an anti-NATO position, especially after Russia invaded Ukraine, which for many Europeans justified NATO and made them love NATO, want to hug and kiss NATO. Okay, I hold my hands up and apologize. I didn't think you could cover him without debating his weird fans and derailing, but this is solid. Thank you. But because he's like unprincipled in general, has no principles whatsoever, and he's at the mercy of his own chat, and considering that his chat is like 60%, I believe, like majority European, of course, Europeans who love when Donald Trump is like dominating Venezuela turned around and yelled at him for treating Greenland, a part of the European continent, like it was a brown country. And so he had to back down and apologize for his previous statements, coming across as callous. And now he's trying to take this like moderate, reasonable middle ground approach. Stopping Russians from raping and torturing people to death is so military-industrial complex. You're right. Oh, God. Ay, ay, ay. This is the reason why Trump is going to not only take Greenland, but maybe even Norway, for the record. Create your own security framework, okay? Develop sovereignty, Europe. I'm not saying fucking keel over and die. I'm simply saying that Donald Trump is doing to the European continent from the western flank what you are fearful of Vladimir Putin doing to you from the eastern flank. Okay? Taking Norway, Lamau, yeah, right. I mean, that's a joke. I brought it up as a joke point, considering that it's an oil-rich nation with its entire extraction industries being nationalized. It's basically white Venezuela. But considering what he has done to Venezuela, who knows? Considering that he's invested in further vassalizing white countries, European countries, who knows where he may go? Maybe Canada's next. Guess who makes the advanced missiles U.S. uses and trains their troops? The only country on this planet that has any sort of sovereignty outside of the United States of America under the security umbrella of the United States of America is Israel. Okay? And in the absence of like a Norwegian APAC that was allowed to basically fucking massage the narrative for like the last 100 years, you're fucked. Okay? You're not Israel, little bro. You're not. You're not Israel, little bro. It's over. Okay? Any country that's not Israel that thinks that they can continue being like a sovereign country while existing under the American security apparatus is not going to make it. Okay? That's it. So weird seeing people defend NATO and it needs to exist because look at Ukraine. Like Europe having its own defense industry wouldn't achieve the same result. You're a NORPAC stooge. I'm not trusting a thing you say. Yeah, they have nationalized oil too. And if you just take what Donald Trump has said about Venezuela and its oil, you know Donald Trump is not the biggest fan of countries that have their own oil that they're extracting from their own land and their own coastline. He doesn't like that at all. That's our oil, baby.
Domestic problems here that, Greenland shouldn't really be the focus. That's my opinion.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Bored with that. So, and also, I want you to look at what's happening today, and I want you to see where my thinking is coming from. Okay, I am looking at America turning to shit. I'm not worried about Greenland. Why am I worried about Greenland? I don't. We can't even control Minnesota. Why are we going to try to take over Greenland?
Yeah. He's scaling back from his let's take Greenland position, but in a very pro MAGA kind of way. Oh yeah, I just think we should just keep deporting migrants. Actually, that's what we should be doing. Yeah. I wonder why his position is so different on Greenland as opposed to every other country. Perhaps it has something to do with the fact that his audience loves when he talks about, dominating Minnesota, but hates dominating Greenland and taking away European sovereignty. I don't know why.
Of Greenland, do they merit the risks and the potential damage being done to NATO?
Well, the run is not worth the slide in the case of a military operation against Greenland. That's why I think it's off the table. I mean, provocative language will always be out there. I mean, this is kind of a negotiating tactic. So I would say with confidence, the United States is not going to use military force against Greenland. Trying to acquire Greenland in a tighter relationship, certainly there are options. Look, we got Seward's Folly, right? 1867, we bought Alaska. Let's go buy Greenland. We can do that. If they want to, there's a seller, we can buy it. Don't know the situation regarding that. Certainly there are other relationships. Iceland was a part of Denmark as well until 1944, and they became independent, became a member of NATO. That's a potential path for Greenland as well. So in other words, there are options well below the threshold of military operation. Your question is, would military operation obviate a NATO as we know it today? Yeah, sure would.
And that would be an enormous risk, even if, and maybe even the mere suggestion of it could do things to NATO that maybe the United States long term would not want to see happen there. Major General James Spider Marks, always great to see you. Thank you so much.
Greenland is dominating the agenda at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. And as always, our Richard Quest has his ear to the ground and joins us now from Davos. Great to see you, Richard. I mean, no doubt that this is going to be very consequential, the conversation. So what are you hearing? Is President Trump going to get his way when it comes to Greenland?
Well, I don't know on that, and he's certainly not going to get his way on Greenland here. We're a long way off that being resolved. I think the Europeans are going to be meeting with the president over several issues, including Gaza and the setting up of the Board of Peace there. But the fact that he sent this extraordinary note to the Prime Minister of Norway, linking his muscular approach on Greenland to the fact he didn't get the Peace Prize, and now of imposing tariffs, they don't know what to do. You see, here's the problem. There is a course of action, a natural course of action that will follow the implementation of those tariffs. No question about it. You retaliate, you put other measures, you use the trade bazooka. But the Europeans don't want to do it, and they're going to be forced to, because what the United States is doing is unheard of. Despite what former Vice President Vance says, the reality is you can't just go and take another country. So the Europeans are absolutely between a hard rock and a hard place, but they will not just roll over and take this.
Yeah.
und ein Herz to say. You must give more of your rights away. Your sacrifice is the only remedy for the real pandemic. We must prepare for an angrier world as Agenda 2030 is unfurled. You will eat the bugs living in the metaverse. You will comply and it will get worse. Are you ready for the new world order? No more human rights or border. We own you. Your thumbs on dollars when we fight you. Order. We make a problem, then blame you. Regardless of everything we do, the fear of the year is coming soon. If you don't stop us, we're screwed. That is quite clear. We will make you live in fear. The puppet, and I'm the puppeteer.
God, I love that. This is the greatest piece of conservative art that has ever been made. I will stand by that. This and like We Are Charlie Kirk, but I guess Charlie Kirk is like AI, so it doesn't count. But this right here is probably the greatest piece of conservative art ever made. This wasn't satire? No, this is the type of shit that your coworker watched and it one-shotted him, okay? Your coworker watched this video in like 2021 and it dramatically changed his brain chemistry, okay? It altered everything. Every part of this, like, oh, you're going to eat the bugs, you will own nothing and be happy, you're going to be a permanent renter. Like, these are all the things that people ascribe falsely to communism and socialism. They think like all of your right-wing coworkers think like Davos is like a socialist gathering of the world's top socialist billionaires. That's what they think. I just need you to understand. They legitimately think these fucking billionaire liberal capitalists are actually socialist. And all of this stuff is actually not capitalism running amok, but instead more socialism. Isn't announcing a new world order at Davos the kind of thing online Trumpists would panic about? Trump's Board of Peace Charter signing ceremony Thursday at 10:30 a.m. in Davos. Anyway, let's continue.
Okay, so very interesting because we saw the British Prime Minister holding an emergency news conference just hours ago. That's after EU ambassadors hold their own meeting in Brussels. So a lot of conversations that are happening because US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says, and I quote, Europeans project weakness and the US projects strength. So I wonder if this is going to be a uniting force for the Europeans to come together on the right and the left.
Okay, so firstly, I think the comment by Scott Bessent yesterday was significant because this does show that it's not just the president on a whim of his own, even though if it was, he could force it. This shows that senior administration officials like Scott Bessent, at least openly or officially, are behind it. That makes it much more difficult for everybody to retaliate against. Then you've got the former vice president you were just hearing about. There is a groundswell of US views that says Greenland should be part of the United States. Where they differ is on the methods and the modalities to make it happen. The problem here is the train is leaving the station. The president has shoved everything on board and is sending it careening down. It is going to be very difficult to stop an all-out trade war at this particular rate because the Europeans cannot, note the word I say will not, cannot be seen to be weak on this issue.
I mean, it's frankly extraordinary, that letter. I've read it several times today. And just to be clear, this was a response to the Prime Minister of Norway, but also the President of Finland, who traditionally gets on really well with Donald Trump. I mean, let's just break down some of it. The tone, this is the leader of the free world. And at times, it sounds like this is the moanings of a petulant child, talking about, we had a boat that landed there too, we should have the rights as well. Also, really disturbing lines. I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace. That's going to be hugely worrying. I remember just a couple of weeks ago, various leaders of NATO countries were saying there's absolutely no way the US would think about invading Greenland to get hold of it. I mean, will this make them think twice? And then another line, which I think will have NATO leaders really feeling like they're banging their heads against a brick wall, is this idea that Denmark can't protect.
Free world implied, yeah. It's a mere implication.
Greenland. And I think what I've heard from numerous leaders, whether it's the EU foreign policy chief, the Germans, people around the EU, is that they're not asking Denmark to protect Greenland alone. They're saying this can be done as part of NATO. And the US is obviously a key part. They're not saying you can't play a role in it. They're saying you should be playing a big role in this because you're a key member of NATO. And I think they'll be wondering, well, if you want more bases in Greenland, it's highly likely you can have them. If you're so worried about security, why have US troops been reduced from
They're like, dog, the whole point of NATO is that you can put bases wherever you want. What do you mean you just want to take the land? Like, it doesn't make any sense, sir. You already have it, you know? It's awesome. It's so funny. I can't help but laugh because it's like completely outside of our control here in the United States of America, because this is like an 80-20 issue where 80% of the country pretty much is like, don't do this. What do you mean you're taking Greenland? What the fuck? And then obviously the 20% of the country are just the most pathetic fucking mouth breathing dumbasses you've ever encountered, who will literally go, I didn't even know where Greenland was on a map, but if Donald Trump wants it, he should take it. He should rape Greenland now. Then me, Mr. President, my bussy is waiting for you too, Mr. President. I'm so ready. I'm so ready to receive you. After you're done fucking Greenland, fuck me, Mr. President. That's how they operate. But it's also kind of funny because it's like, you know, like, what are we doing here? What the fuck are we doing here? This makes no damn sense. It doesn't make any strategic sense. It doesn't make any sense from, you know, the NATO alliances that we have already. We are, in many ways, giving the game away. We're giving the game away, for the record. Something I like to repeat over and over again. Donald Trump does away with all of the smoke and mirrors. He's just like, it's mine. I will take it. I have the power. Nothing you can say or do about it will change that matter. And it kind of cooks the liberal position, right? Liberals who believe that there is a rhyme or reason for American incursion around the world, and it's not just for imperial super profits to extract from the global south and maybe even the global north now. So I guess I just have to sit here and look at, do you approve of the military? Do you approve of using the military to take Greenland? No, 86%. 86%. That's insane, dude. Like, there is more support for Donald Trump protecting Jeffrey Epstein. What the fuck? There are more Republicans out there who believe that Donald Trump should not reveal the Jeffrey Epstein files than there are Republicans who believe Donald Trump should militarily take over Greenland. Oh my God, it's awesome. Oh, that's fucking amazing. The implication here is that, hold on, I gotta get the Twitter fingers going. The implication here is that Trump's protection of elite pedophiles connected to Epstein is a more popular position in his base than taking Greenland militarily. Have you considered using Grok to word your tweets? Yeah, I've considered it. Like, I've considered killing myself with a gun, like shooting myself with a gun on camera. Those are the same level of consideration that I've had for that. I've had for using Grok to word out my fucking tweets, dude. Yeah. At Grok, please make me sound like a fucking moron. Grok said, bet.
The government.
What? Hassan, you literally said in your 2022 stream that socialism has never worked in practice. Meanwhile, countries like Norway, Denmark, GDP, and Finland rank top in GDP per capita, happiness, and social mobility. How are we ignoring real world data here? What? I said socialism has never worked in practice? What? Also, none of those countries are socialist. Am I wrong? Fact check it. Did you... Chatter, do you know who I am? I remember that. You said that in 2021. In fact, this is a clip watcher 100%. Am I wrong? Fact check it. So we trying to play it off? Okay, two things that you are failing to comprehend here. Number one, I don't know what I said that you misunderstood. Okay, actually, you said it in 2020, 2019, and 2018. And I'm still saying it. I'm saying it yesterday. I'm saying it today. Socialism has never worked. Okay. But also beyond that, these countries are not socialist countries. These countries are social democracies with higher degrees of socialization. And not only that, but also, I use them as examples of where we must move, what direction we must move in. Okay. So you're right. As far as per capita happiness, social mobility, and all this other stuff, these countries are actually thriving as opposed to the United States of America. And the only reason why they're thriving, the right winger will look at that and say, well, there's like social cohesion born out of being like, predominantly white nations. Okay. However, that's not the real reason. The real reason why these countries have higher ranks on all this stuff is because they have more socialization. Norway being the example that I use regularly with respect to like Venezuela. Norway has its entire extraction industries nationalized, and they make better use of that revenue from the process of extraction than the United States of America does, clearly. You did say that recently. I forget the conversation, but they dumbass not realizing the why. You said it only works short term or something like that, but you didn't specifically explain why it was implied that was because of Western intervention. This is a funny way to like try to own me, though, to say like you think socialism doesn't work. So we trying to play it off in general, bro, whatever makes you happy. Brother, just link the fucking clip and we can discuss it. Is it this? If given to you, all of that wealth, if distributed across the, like why socialism always fails? Like maybe he saw that and he thought I meant like it always fails. This was clearly from the only live stream you did in 2022. I guess, bro, whatever makes you happy. Oh, okay. That's what IG means. No, just like, if you want me to clarify a position, I'm going to find the clip. Okay, you find the clip and we'll give you the perms so you can send it. Norway has a population of 5.6 million, but easier to feed and socialize a small population. Where China go wrong, 20 plus million dead. China is a transitional socialist state, okay? Led by a communist party, okay? It is a transitional socialist state. This is true. And even then, it's not like a full-blown socialist state or a communist state at all, right? Like a complete communist state. Having said that, the reason why I say Norway and all these other countries are social democracies is because they are still capitalist. Because capital still controls everything. And the reason why you're making this silly argument is because you think that economies don't scale. And you know the counterexample I would use is China in this situation. So you had to say, oh, well, China went wrong because even though they're socialist and they are actually a functioning country that has been able to develop itself and has become a massive global superpower that is the manufacturing engine of the entire planet, you have to like add something else to it to be like, well, it's still a failure, right? It's still a failure, 20 million dead. That's famine. Mismanagement and famine. And since the last great famine, China has not experienced any famine. So while that was a horrifying period of time for Chinese people, the reality of the matter is famine is no longer an issue at all. It seems a bit more complicated in countries like Norway. There's competing power centers of the state, capital, and labor, at least as I understand. Yes. Is a country socialist if it's just official state ideology? A country like Norway is more socialized than other self-declared socialist countries historically. Norway is very small. It seems a bit complicated in countries like Norway. There's competing power centers. Exactly. But capital always dominates. Capital always dominates the state, and capital always dominates labor, as long as capital still has control over the flows of capital. That, I think, is one of the major reasons why I say China is a transitional socialist state, because of, one, land use, and also, two, like the control over flows of capital. That, I think, is the major difference. Is China then so much different to Norway? Yes. That is a profound difference. Controlling the flows of capital is the most consequential difference between what I would declare to be a transitional socialist state versus a full-blown capitalist state. That is the major difference. But like I said, when I'm talking about the United States of America, especially when I'm talking about the United States of America, especially in the interim, especially in the short term, like I'm perfectly fine with advocacy towards a greater degree of socialization and expansion of the existing welfare state, things of that nature. And the reason for why I advocate for that in the United States of America is because the United States of America doesn't even have those things and thinks those things are fucking communist. You got to work within the confines of what's acceptable, what's permissible, what's possible. There's a new account in YouTube that streams you live. Is this legal? I don't think so. And I didn't know that they were doing that. And link it to me. And I'll figure out what to do. That explains why someone earlier said something about the YouTube chat. What is the account? And the only reason why I have an issue with that is because they will try and use those VODs to strike down other, fan accounts and stuff like that. I can't believe it. Hassan Piker
What is the
live.
account?
What the fuck? Yo, he caught us. Run. What the fuck? Snitch Lamau, you're in trouble. Backup account for when I have to eat a copyright ban from videos Hassan watches. Hassan Piker live too. I'm not affiliated with Hasanabi. I just work at 9 to 5 and listen to Hassan while I'm at work, but my data doesn't work in the office and Twitch is blocked on my work laptop. I know I'm not the only person with a reason like this. I would love if Hassan streamed here himself, and YouTube audience really needs voices like this. And right now when you look up, okay, so he's not actually, okay, I don't have an issue with this. This person is not doing it. This person is not doing it nefariously. Now, or at least I don't think he is. My fear would be if he was like nefariously fucking re-uploading the live stream to YouTube so that he could like strike down other people's YouTube clips and stuff like that. I've heard you say socialism never works many times. You were always making fun of anti-communist lies every time. Yeah. That's why I was shocked when that chatter came in and tried to say, you clearly said socialism doesn't work in 2022. And I was actually a bit interested in what he was going to pull out of his ass to make it seem like I'm a anti-socialist at any point. Yeah, you keep repeating socialism doesn't work right now. Exactly. I keep saying those words, you know. Lenin, using state and revolution as my basis, would likely argue that Norway's a bourgeois state and therefore would side with bourgeois interests more frequently, while China, being a worker state, even if nominally, would side with labor over capital more frequently. Well, the whole point is that as long as capital remains in power, okay, it will slowly but surely erode labor protections, because the goal of capital is to consistently improve its profit margins when profit rates have a tendency to decline. And therefore, they will try to squeeze the labor force, because labor is the most malleable aspect of the productive forces. They will either seek out other labor markets, as we have done so. This is why imperialism is a necessity, or the highest stage of capitalism, dominating the rest of the planet. And through that domination, you just have new labor markets that are always going to work at for pennies on the dollar, as opposed to the domestic labor force. Okay, so that's one way that capital continues dominating. Okay. The other way that capital continues dominating is by squeezing the labor power that exists at the domestic level, slowly but surely engaging in displationary mechanisms, whether it be automation or whether it be forcing the existing labor force to do more work for the same price point, same wages. And as long as capital still continues to own the economy, it will continue to erode whatever kind of safety nets that exist. This is why social democracies, as we're seeing right now in the European continent, are going through this process where they are engaging in austerity measures, like self-imposed measures that are ruining the living standards of the working class. Only time when America's experienced tremendous prosperity is when FDR leaned into the anger and resentment that the working class had, And we're still eating good off of the benefits of like a crumb of social democracy in the country. But America in and of itself is proof that social democracy it has a shelf life, right? Social democracy exists on a timeline where it will inevitably erode all of the gains made by trade unionists, socialists, and communists alike. And that same erosion is taking place in Europe right now. Anyway, let's continue with American domination now.
Thousands to a few hundred. You know, if you want to have access to rare earth and other precious minerals on Greenland, you can apply for the permits. So they're saying you don't need to do this alone. It doesn't need to be us versus you. We can all do it under NATO and be safer together. They all agree that the Arctic does need more security. That's why they sent this exploratory mission last week, they say, that antagonized Donald Trump and led him to...
Pretending that the will of the people is done in China is pretty nuts. It's basically a dictatorship with a heavy hand to spank anyone who speaks out of line. Yes, I know. I'm a Westerner as well. I grew up in Turkey, and now I live in the United States of America. So yes, for Westerners, the only form of domination and the only form of repression that matters is when the state tells you what you can and can't say. And I understand that that's a silly thing that the Chinese government has done, and albeit violent thing at times as well, a very violent one. Having said that, however, if you think that the Chinese government has not dramatically improved the living standards of every single Chinese person over the course of the last, 4 decades or so, you are denying reality, right? You're denying reality. For Western liberals in general, check my argument is about how they have a dictator and no election for him. Yes, they have a different structure of governance that relies on meritocracy. It's actually, the elections happen in the local level, okay? But the top positions are actually internally assigned. You're talking about the standing committee structure that exists, but the standing committee still gets its notes from all of the local elected representatives. Of course they have elections in China. They just don't elect Xi Jinping. They have a different governance structure that is hyper meritocratic. And at the end of the day, you have to look at the results. And the results are that there has been tremendous material improvements on the lives of every single Chinese person, so much so that the Chinese population's approval ratings for its own government is far, far higher than any Western nation. There is not a single Western nation that has a similar level of approval for their own governments as the Chinese people's approval is for the Communist Party of China. Not even Marx Carney? No, not even close. And that's why you have to resort back to, they get clapped for even sharing pictures, okay? Like, or being a woman watching gay porn. Wait, what? Okay, they can't even speak out. Okay, once again, can you trust those approval rating polls? I mean, the reason why I trust those approval rating polls is because people would assume that this is actually a Chinese approval rating poll, right? Like, oh, it's not relevant. It's obviously fake. The state made it up. Except the approval rating polls that I'm talking about are conducted by Harvard. And Harvard has no fucking interest in making China look good, you know? So yes, while there is state repression, especially in terms of free speech, there is no free speech in China, obviously. There are certain things you can discuss endlessly, and then there are certain things you can't discuss. Having said that, and there's also a lot more state-level control over like silly things that we consider to be stupid. Okay? We consider understandably, and I also agree with you on this. Like we consider, like China, for example, fears that there is an upcoming crisis with their birth rates, and in an effort to stop it, I guess, in an effort to get ahead of that, they think they can just move culture in a certain direction, and in an effort to crack down on that, they will take a heavy-handed approach in censorship over, I don't know, like the more feminine looking men, for example. They want like more manly looking men. They want to present themselves as more masculine. They want to dominate culture in that regard. It's like state design over where the culture should go. This is absolutely a foreign concept for Americans, right? even though we have similar things that we do, manufacturing consent and the like, but that's usually for foreign policy. It's never over like silly shit. Okay? So they do stuff like that that I don't agree with and also criticize. But at the end of the day, existence is more complex than that. Okay? If that's the only thing you care about, okay, well, Americans can yell endlessly about their politicians, as I do on a daily fucking basis, right? We can call our president a pedophile. We can do all of this stuff. And for the time being, we don't get punished for it. We don't get imprisoned for it. But nothing changes. You understand? And there are still plenty of undemocratic forces at play, even within this supposedly liberal bastion of democracy and freedom. In China, you can actually complain and get results. But you can't say certain things, and there is no guarantee that the state won't take a heavy-handed approach tomorrow over certain things that you obviously identify with. Do you see what I mean? No corruption in China, obviously. That's not what I said. I never said that. Corruption certainly, especially before Xi Jinping, existed heavily in China. Xi Jinping has been incredibly heavy-handed and incredibly intolerant towards any sort of corruption. This is not to say China is a perfect nation. I'm just saying that there's a lot of misunderstandings about China, especially here in the United States of America, due to state propaganda, ironically enough. But again, this is wrong. Like, look, where is it? Someone in the chat was talking about, I don't know why we're talking about China, but do you really think China is socialist simply because it has a strong state that controls capital and markets? Yes, I do. And socialism doesn't mean woke or progressive, for the record. Okay? It is an economic organization of society. I think China is a transitional socialist state. Yes, because of the things that you just mentioned. Socialism has nothing to do with being woke or being fucking, pro-minority rights at all. Like, that's not what it is. Socialism is just an economic organization of society. Having said that, you can and should still focus on social liberties as well. Okay? Of course. People often mistake social leftism with economic leftism. Yeah. This is a fucking filter to shut down critical thinking in taking improvements China has made and incorporating it into our society to improve the lives of the people on the lower end of the bracket? Yes. Is it true that drinking coffee is illegal in China? No. China has a huge coffee culture. I mean, I was just there. There's like a fucking there are Chinese coffee shops. There are Chinese coffee shops that are now opening up in the United States of America. State capitalism isn't socialism, my guy. I know, guys. No, you're right. You have perfected. You have built communism in your mind. It's going to happen. USSR was a state capitalist enterprise. China is a state capitalist enterprise. It's not real socialism. Okay. You build it, dude. You built it. You built it in your mind. The real socialism is the French Commune. That's it. It's the only time it's ever existed. That's why I was joking earlier when I said, like, MLK was a social fascist because he wasn't revolutionary enough. He just wanted to take some of the imperial super profits and redistribute it more evenly amongst the working class and including black working class individuals as well. He had bourgeois interests. He did not want to immediately implement communism and therefore was a social fascist. Heck are you talking about? USSR was never capitalist. No free economic zones up in here. Brother, they called the USSR, the same people that call China a state capitalist enterprise would say the same about the USSR, okay? And also, ironically enough, the free economic trade zones have been greatly beneficial for China, including the reforms that came through as well. Foreign capital played a role in China being able to develop, okay? Anyway, building whole process people's democracy in China from Progressive International, introduction in Ministry Village. Okay, I don't care about this stuff. Does this get into the actual Harvard study or not? Here we report data from several major studies. First, the Harvard University Ash Center for Democratic Governance and Innovation has maintained what constitutes the most extensive independent assessment of Chinese citizen satisfaction with governmental performance, tracking popular attitudes since 2003. Their 2020 report, Understanding CCP Resilience, Surveying Chinese Public Opinion Through Time, revealed broad popular support for the Chinese government at all levels. The study's authors, and for the record, I'm going to explain to you why, okay? Because a lot of people, when they actually see their own version of governance, okay, and they think, oh, they think it's super popular because Yeah, see, this guy immediately, this pig immediately goes, North Korea has great approval ratings. And I can't tell if that person is being sarcastic or if that person is trying to say China is like North Korea or if that person is a Jusha supporter. So my mistake, if you're actually a Jusha dick rider, I troll. Okay, good troll chatter. So why is this important? It's very simple. I saw it with my own two eyes when I went to Tiananmen Square for the flag raising ceremony, a concept that is objectively foreign to me, as objectively foreign as like a state trying to dominate culture with a heavy hand, or even punishing people for speaking out against things that I consider silly, right? If not violent at times. Why did we see the Chinese aunties travel from all different parts of China to go and fucking see a flag get raised for like 5 minutes when it was freezing temperatures in Tiananmen Square? Why were they rushing Tiananmen Square to just see the fucking flag raising ceremony? A thing that happens every day at 4:30 in the morning. The reason why is because they have actually seen dramatic material improvements in their lives over the course of the last 30 fucking years. Okay? That's it. You can't make people do that at gunpoint. You can't make people do that by force. People only do that because they lived it and they love it. That's it. That's it. Americans are heavily propagandized as well. You can say that about China too. You can be like, oh, well, the state is heavy-handed in their, cultural enforcement. The state is heavy-handed in their propaganda. And that's the reason why these people have been deluded into loving their country. Okay. But it wouldn't show this level of resilience over time. The reason why these polls show a very different reality than the one you actually hear in American news and in Western media is because, well, one, you rarely ever talk to Chinese foreign students in a sincere manner, I suspect. Or at least in my experience, many of them are fearful because they know how much the Americans fucking despise China and are fearful of their government. So they won't give you like their full-throated endorsement over the government. But the real reason is because they have seen the noticeable improvement in their lives. If America did a similar thing, if America had some semblance of social democracy, American patriotism would be much higher too. People would be very much on board with the American government. Look at FDR, one of the most historically popular presidents of all fucking time. There's a reason for it, because he fucking made people's lives better. It's that simple. It turns out if the government is efficient and if the government is effective at improving people's material conditions, the people like it. Even when the government, on the other hand, has really restrictive or repressive tools that they utilize that the liberal mind cannot comprehend. Like, we look at that and we go, how the fuck are these people not like revolting against the government? How is that possible? Well, it's because, at least from my own anecdotal conversations that I've had with Chinese people, okay, is there are certain things you can't say. And as long as you don't say certain things, your life is fine. If that is the highest priority for you, is to be able to call the president a pedophile, for example, and it's not even, there's no irony in me saying this, because my entire job is to be a political dissenter. Okay, like I would not be able to exist as a Chinese boy. Okay, there is no Chinese Hasanabi that looks to the Chinese government and like routinely criticizes the Chinese government in the same way that I exist in the United States of America. Someone who lives in the United States of America and criticizes the American government all the fucking time. Okay, it's just funny because like this is a concept that even the fucking Nelk boys understood, right? Two of the Nelks were talking to one another after their China trip. Steiny was not. Steiny is one of the Nelks. The other one is Kyle. Steiny was not able to come into China because he had some passport issues. But Kyle, coming fresh off of his trip in China, turned around and said to the other Nelk, Steiny, listen, China is not like the way I thought it was at all. Okay? It's awesome. It's dope. You can party. You can say whatever the fuck you want, as long as you don't say certain things. You don't talk about the party. You don't talk about the leaders. Then you can talk about whatever the fuck you want, and you can party. You can do whatever you want. It's true. The average Chinese existence is not all that different than the average American's existence. Look at my previous message. It shows why there's so much support. This is why there's popular support. I mean, this is part of it, yes. By the way, it's ironic because these are circuit court judges that travel on horseback across grasslands and valleys, turning them into open-air courtrooms, helping people in remote areas to resolve disputes. But like Xi Jinping also comes not from a circuit court judge background, but like Xi Jinping's job initially was to basically work in like the Chinese version of Mississippi until he worked through the party ranks and secured a position of leadership. But this is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is like extreme efficiency when it comes to dealing with certain disputes, a hyper focus on performance. And here are the results. Understanding CCP resilience, surveying Chinese public opinion throughout time revealed broad popular support for the Chinese government at all levels. I bet you've never fucking heard that before unless you've heard me bring these results up in the past. The study's authors, operating within an analytical framework that initially presumed China's authoritarian character would generate legitimacy crises, instead documented consistent increases in citizen satisfaction. Central government approval reached 93% by 2016, with provincial governments maintaining 82% support rates, with consistent increases over time. Significantly, the research identified that marginalized populations in economically disadvantaged inland regions demonstrated comparatively higher increases in satisfaction, suggesting, in line with Chinese thinking of the function of whole process people's democracy, that states' responsiveness to material conditions constitute a key mechanism with its legitimacy. Improve people's lives, and they will actually like your government. Even if your government actually has, from a Western perspective, plenty of fucking issues with like repression, right? That's it. 82% is insane, is an insane SimCity style I cheated number. The authors summarized their results as follows. We find that since the start of the survey in 2003, Chinese citizen satisfaction with government has increased virtually across the board. From the impact of broad national policies to the conduct of local town officials, Chinese citizens rate the government as more capable and effective than ever before. Interestingly, more marginalized groups in poorer inland regions are actually comparatively more likely to report increases in satisfaction. That's the other reason why when people were talking about like minority rights in China, what they fail to comprehend is, with the exception of the dragnets and mass apprehension, mass detention, and, you know, work camps that were designed in Xinjiang, China actually has had a long-standing tradition of minority rights for quite a while. Like they literally have had affirmative action 300 fucking years ago, like straight up state-sanctioned affirmative action in some way, shape, or form. Now, of course, that's complicated because like you have different ethnic groups in China. I think it's like what 56, and there have been instances where like one of those minority groups was actually, you know, running the entire it's not 6-7, it's 56 different ethnic groups. And besides that, like people think, yeah, the Manchus were running China. That's not what I'm talking about though. Like there are different dynasties, right? But outside of that, even Han Chinese, like Han Chinese, which is the majority group, is still incredibly diverse. They have different languages, for example, different cultural attitudes, like regional cultural attitudes. China's a very large country. So even the Han Chinese, like, is not like a singular group either. But China has had a fuck ton of affirmative action initiatives in general, which is ironic because that's also another thing that I used to joke about before I went to China, about like having a Chinese hog, Hao Peking, who was mad that, you know, minority groups were getting positions that they did not deserve. And it turns out there is actually a statement like that. There is actually a sentiment such as that one that some Chinese people actually hold, where they think if you do something to a minority group, the police will always side with the minority group against you, even if they are of lower character, was what I was told. Even if they are ruffians, for example, that are engaging in bullying behavior or violence or criminal, doing criminal shit, the police will always side with the ethnic minority over the Han Chinese. Now, I don't think that's the case, obviously, but I'm saying that there is still that reactionary sentiment expressed even by Chinese people. People are not monolithic, no matter where they're from, and a certain percentage of people will always be contrarians, dislike the government, or be unhappy. That's why I find surveys like this to be very unreliable. There's nothing on earth that can get a 93% approval, let alone a state. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 70%, but 93 is not very believable. All right, we'll take it up with Harvard. I understand why you feel that way. They're getting Assad numbers out here, but these results are consistent with the data from the Asian Barometer study, which in 2015 found that 87% of respondents in China had a great deal or quite a lot of trust in the national government. So too with the World Values Survey, which consistently shows that over 90% of people in China report a great deal or quite a lot of trust in the national government. In 2018, the most recent wave, trust was at 95%, one of the highest levels in the world. Complementing these findings, the Alliance of Democracies, established by former NATO leadership and Danish government officials, has produced annual reports of the Democracy Perception Index since 2019. Through partnership with the German market research firm Latana and the AOD, employs methodological approaches to specifically designed to mitigate response bias and self-censorship concerns. The 2024 findings reveal that 92% of Chinese respondents consider democracy important, 79% characterize their country as democratic, and 91% perceive their government as serving broad popular interests rather than elite constituencies. Each of these figures was higher than in almost any other country in the world. This is not just the Harvard study. Like, do you understand? These are not organizations that are invested in making China look good. People in disbelief simply because it doesn't happen here. Yeah, I mean, when I was young, a trip from my hometown to Beijing took an 11-hour overnight sleeper train. I can now take an express high-speed rail direct line to Beijing for $32 on a day trip in 2.5 hours. The change in my own lifetime is something that no Westerner will ever comprehend. Exactly. This is impossible to understand by Western conceptualization. You will never understand it. Okay? The only thing that I can, I guess, kind of compare it to is Claudia Sheinbaum and the success built by the Morena Party in Mexico. And they have done only modest expansions of the social safety net. And even then, the Mexican population has responded with a similar, almost too cohesive positive approval rating. But time and time again, if you look at like different countries around the world, there are obviously different factors that will, create nationalistic fervor. One example that is on the opposing side of this argument, the counter example, I guess, is 9/11. Post 9/11, there was a rallying around the flag effect in the United States of America, and George W. Bush's approval rating skyrocketed to like 91%, right? So there are other instances where things like that can happen as well. But these are resilient numbers. These are numbers that haven't like swung as wildly as George W. Bush in one term, right? Also, look, you said FDR did China shit and he never got over 61% of the vote. Brother, 61% of the vote is China shit for American standards, though. That was the reason why I used FDR as an example. So yeah. Worth noting that Bush had the highest and lowest approval ratings for a president in his lifetime. Exactly. Anyway, and far ahead on each of these metrics than respondents in the US, France, Britain, the classic liberal democracies. For the record, I'm not trying to say that like the Chinese form of governance is the best. It's just that I'm simply saying there are certain things that every government can do to really bring up their own approval ratings. This is my theory for change. Okay? Do you get what I mean? I believe that the most effective mechanism of control is still the Western liberal style of making people feel like they have freedom when they technically kind of don't, right? And as long as you're the dominant power, you can have free speech. As long as you're the dominant power, you can have a guy like Hassan Piker talk shit about the president. Because I don't represent a significant enough threat to the powers that be. Capital is so domineering and so powerful that it doesn't matter. I can be one of the top Amazon content creators on a platform that Jeff Bezos owns and then be the single largest donator to the Amazon labor union, even though it was private initially and then it was leaked. So now I can talk about it, right? Because that's how much power capital has. I think none of us should believe any approved proposal put it over at 90%. That's not how humanity works. It's never worked that way. Be a bit more skeptical, everyone. Think about everyone. Even against something totally perfect, at least 10% of the population will be contrarians or bitter. Monolithic opinion is next to impossible. Okay, the point is that regardless of like how high this score is, it's objectively so much higher than every other fucking country. That's my point. Maybe it turns out that what people perceive as like the best possible form of governance, if democracy is the best possible form of governance, what people actually substitute for democracy is improvement of material conditions. And if you judge it off of that, China, of course, is much more successful than all these other countries. And therefore, it outperforms all these other countries. You understand? This is virtually impossible to explain to people who perceive our, two-party duopoly as totally independent from one another, like two warring factions that are ideologically opposed to one another on issues that matter, and have deluded themselves into thinking that like American democracy actually cares about your perspective in any way, shape, or form. It's going to be impossible for me to explain it to you, but the average Chinese person, not like someone from Taiwan or Hong Kong, but like the average Chinese person living in mainland China that you are never going to hear from, basically, believes that the Chinese party, whether they're correct or not, doesn't matter, but they believe that the Communist Party of China is representing the wishes of the masses. They believe that the Chinese Revolution and the People's Republic of China and the implementation of communism in China was a way to take the ownership away from the landed gentry and the previous formations and give it back to the people. Okay? That's how they see it. That is how they see it. Anyway, let's get back to our democracy now.
Announce these potential tariffs on the 8 countries that did that, but they really aren't getting through, it seems, this message that we're not against you, we're trying to do this with you.
Just talk to us a little bit more about the EU, Siobhan, because there's talk, isn't there, of some pretty chunky tariffs in retaliation.
My Chinese wife is really impressed with your knowledge, proud of you. Thank you. It's the highest honor I can receive.
93 billion euros?
Yeah. Now, listen, I think the last year has been really tough at times for many EU leaders, and they've had to bite their tongue when it comes to dealing with the US president, particularly, for example, the way that he seems to have given Russia preferential treatment, the way he's treated President Putin in comparison to the rough treatment that we've seen for President Zelensky time and again. But I think what has happened now with these tariffs is many are saying enough is enough. They frankly, in many corners, are talking about bullying and that they have to stand up to bullies. We had a news conference today from the German Vice Chancellor, and he said this: "I have no interest in an escalation and do not search for one. We're ready to find solutions. We're offering our hand, but we are not prepared to let ourselves be blackmailed." And similar messaging coming out from Sweden, for example. So what can the EU do? Well, listen, they don't want to pick a fight with the US. They have a huge trading interest with the US. They are key allies in NATO. So the first thing they're going to be looking to do, I think, is diplomacy and trying to send out some of those traditional Trump whisperers, particularly behind the scenes at Davos. So they've got this opportunity to try and do that. I know, for example, that the Germans are planning to have a meeting with Trump either on Wednesday or Thursday. If all of that behind the scenes whispering fails, then there's an extraordinary meeting of EU leaders on Thursday, where they'll talk about next steps. Now, possible next steps are unfreezing, as you were saying, this 93 billion euro tariff package, which has been frozen since July, but could come back online against the US from the 6th of February. That's one option. Another option is the so-called trade bazooka. This is something that Emmanuel Macron, the French president, has been talking about over the weekend. This is the anti-coercion mechanism.
Harris campaign asked Tim Walz if he's a Chinese agent. No! Brother, that's awesome. Oh my God, that is fucking awesome. Holy shit. Walls was also asked about foreign ties during Harris' vetting. Sources tell CNN. Oh, because he went to China. Oh, we'll do it. We'll do it again. We'll go back to the Josh Shapiro story because I covered it briefly yesterday and I think it's really fucking stupid. Oh, also speaking of China, walking around Chongqing, you can see how iShowSpeed was here signs in various restaurants. I am the most jealous man in the United States of America right now. There is no one more jealous than me. I am Lemon Bro through and through. I will never be iShowSpeed. I will never be seen as a Chinese boy. It's just never gonna happen. There ain't no Hassan signs anywhere. You know what I mean? At most, we got a Hassan Pike delegation was here sign. Yeah, it's for likely for living overseas. They ask a version of this question on the SF-86 if you literally just know anyone who lives in a foreign country. You glaze China the most, but Speed mogs you, I'm afraid. Don't be afraid. It's true. He mogs the fuck out of me, dude. Brother, I have Chinese Hasanabi heads that get together and organize locally and have fun, and they wouldn't even invite me. They wouldn't even invite me to their hangout session when I was in their city, okay? That's how fucking motionless I am, that the Hassan Piker fan club that gets together did not want me to attend a fan meeting. Kind of weird to want to go to your own fan club. Why is that weird? That's awesome. If a scenario like the Kazakh oil workers mass striking for their being treated horribly on their Chinese oil companies 6 years ago was repeated, would you still support the Chinese no matter what? When have I supported the Chinese no matter what? Like, we're talking about Chinese domestic control. I never talked about fucking Chinese companies having the exact same fucking horrible work conditions or just having a very hands-off attitude about what takes place in countries beyond their loans and beyond their development. This is what's so frustrating about it. Everybody always fucking has this like idiotic approach where it's like, oh, you said something, you said something that I'm not used to hearing about China. So you must be unconditionally and uncritical about, like, you know, how China operates. I don't like China for some weird, like, spiritual reason, okay? I like what the Chinese government has done for the Chinese people. I want the American government to do that for the American people. Do you understand me? If the Chinese government, for example, tomorrow decided we are actually implementing tremendous reforms, we're going to let all the fucking billionaires that are a part of the party run the country. We've decided we're abolishing the standing committee. It's over. We are doing full-blown capitalism. We are going to do extraction of natural resources in the global south in the exact same way that the Western world was doing. We are going to do what America is doing. I would say fuck China, okay? Like, that's it. Yeah, it's like you spoke favorably of Mamdani. Does that mean you approve of the Kunduz hospital strike? Exactly. Oh, you like Zohran Mamdani as mayor of New York? Well, you must have loved the move bombing. You see how fucking stupid that sounds? You see how fucking dumb that sounds? Oh, you like Eugene Debs? Oh, you like Bernie Sanders? Well, I guess you also like that the founders were slavers, huh? I guess you love chattel slavery. No, I don't actually. What is so frustrating with my analysis is that I apply a consistent logic to China as I do to America. Like, for example, when I say the American Revolution was good, okay? That doesn't mean that it was perfect, or that doesn't mean that like the American Revolution against the British Empire was a good thing, okay? It was a good thing. It gained America sovereignty and independence, okay? From being from remaining a settler colonial state that was completely controlled by the British Empire, okay? But that doesn't mean that the slavers that did it were good people overall. I have the capacity to see the good and bad in historical figures. When I talk about Mao Zedong, for example, I'm not defending the Cultural Revolution, or I'm not defending the genuine damage that the Chinese population took in the collectivization efforts that took place. Okay, there are always going to be mistakes. Yeah, I love Mao Zedong. I fucking hate sparrows, dude. I hate them. We need to do a sparrow genocide ASAP. That's why I like Mao Zedong. Fuck the birds. Like, you know what I mean? It's stupid. It's a very stupid assessment.
It's never been used before in the EU, but if they unleash this, then essentially it would put restrictions on things like investments, banking, access to markets. It would be really painful. These are serious measures and they would hit the EU as well. But I do think many now are feeling that
You're a
they've
Chinese
hit
agent, you're not
their
even
red
hiding it
lines.
anymore?
They have to stand up because, frankly, if they don't, what
China is literally doing all the things you claim they're not. You're a Chinese spy, I swear to God. 52-month subscriber is what I would say before taking my schizo meds. Okay, God damn it, dude. Stop fucking baiting me, bro. Stop! Oh, okay.
Beth Rigby from Sky News. Thank you so much.
This guy's my favorite guy, by the way. He's just smoking bogues and looking depressed all the time.
Talking to us. Just briefly, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, said this morning he did not think that Trump would militarily invade Greenland. President Trump has just refused to rule that out. What's your response?
Well, first of all, my response to the Prime Minister is that we really appreciate the very strong statement for him from his side, arguing that, you know, there are principles in life. And even though UK has a very special relationship to UK, which I acknowledge, especially after Brexit, there are red lines which can't be crossed. This is a matter of basic principles, and we are living in 2026 where you can trade with people, but you can't trade people. And listening to a UK Prime Minister who stands up for that principle is very important. And then, of course, I realize you can't leave anything out until the president himself have decided to leave anything out. Huh?
Spicy take, modern China without the Cultural Revolution would have been ruined the same way the United States was ruined by not choosing the route out ex-Confederate and in post-Civil War antebellum period. Brother, there was a lot of excesses. Like, come on. The anti-rightist movement did not just focus on right-wingers and reactionaries, okay? Like... I'm not willing to entertain that. I'm not willing to entertain that. I feel like that's a bridge too far. Like, the excesses were far too much. It was also decentralized. It was so anarchist. Like, it was just not that kind of like ideological violence. It was unimaginably regressive, in my opinion, and it worked in spite of the tremendous excesses, partially due to the resilience of the Chinese people in general. I feel like, not to talk about like a foreign country's population like they're a totally alien species, but you know, I think a materialist analysis, I guess, to a certain degree in this situation would be that like they were used to such horrid conditions that this was also seen as like another setback that they could overcome. But it's crazy. Like that there is, you know, it's not, by the way, that's not even like, it's not, the Chinese government doesn't even, the Chinese government even recognizes that element. I think Mao greatly underestimated the ideological zealotry that bored young teenagers took on. Yes, I do believe that the North was too lenient with the South in the aftermath of the Civil War. But once again, my criticisms of the Cultural Revolution revolve around the decentralized nature of said violence. Okay? The decentralized nature of the violence that took place, or the repression that took place, unironically was one of the major issues here. A strong state, like a strong northern state, the federal government, could have actually done a much better job of dealing with all of the reactionary sentiment, but they had no interest in that. They wanted to basically keep the racial pecking order the same, and that's precisely the reason why they did not punish the Klan as aggressively as they should have. They did not punish the people that were like actively engaging in racialized violence against black people that were like newly freed in the Reconstruction era. The failure of the Reconstruction is directly a consequence of the North reinforcing the same white supremacist attitudes. Like even with the government's design in the Reconstruction era in the United States of America, when you think about it, newly freed black men and women never got their reparations, the 40 acres and a mule, as opposed to the actual slavers that did get reparations for loss of revenue, for loss of capital. That capital was human beings. So that, to me, directly spells what the government's priorities were. The government's priorities in that situation was to maintain order, even if it was actually a structurally unjust and lawless and a totally inappropriate version of law and order. My grandfather literally went through the whole plaque hanging and head shaving that young Red Guards put him through because he was an engineer, always remained patriotic. He always remained patriotic, though. 2 government officials after the Cultural Revolution came to him and gave him a stipend and 2 apartments as an apology. Yeah, like that type of stuff is crazy. You know what I mean? Like science is a bourgeois decadence and counter-revolutionary is just like I'm never gonna fucking sit there and defend the horrifying excesses of the Cultural Revolution and the decentralized version of like punitive measures and violence that took place. That's ridiculous. Okay, it is actually one of the things that I don't fully subscribe to or understand. My dad told me stories of what they consider bourgeois, like playing cards and vases. Yeah, the extreme end of that, especially the state-mandated version of that, was Pol Pot's anti-intellectual campaign, literally fucking assassinating people for wearing glasses. You know what I mean? Lining up motherfuckers for wearing glasses and killing them. It's the most ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous thing. Your pussy Western left attitude is the reason the U.S. will always be a fascist ethno-state. The Cultural Revolution was a positive. I like that this fucking white Westerner pig is over here talking about fucking the Cultural Revolution was a positive when even in spite of all the censorship that the Chinese government, okay, you're Cuban, doesn't matter, okay? You're still a fucking Westerner talking about something that even the Chinese government, despite its censorship, has like openly recognized as a destabilizing endeavor that certainly set China back. This is such liberal analysis from you. We should do the Cultural Revolution to the South now. Anyway, yes, China succeeded in spite of the Cultural Revolution, not because of it. But the other thing that I was going to say is like that's the other concept that I don't understand is like almost like a deification of leadership. In times of struggle, when Deng on the one hand when Deng Xiaoping was doing reforms, on the other hand, he was greatly hyping up Mao Zedong. Because Mao Zedong has always been like a way to like deification of Mao Zedong has always been seen as like a galvanizing principle for every single Chinese person. Like the great man theory absolutely exists in China to a certain degree. No, nothing, not even remotely similar to George Washington. Americans don't understand nationalism, man. You guys are so funny. No, not even remotely close. You can say George Washington's a slaver, which is true. You can say George Washington sucks. You can say he's a pedophile. You can say fuck George Washington in the United States of America. Nothing will happen to you. But in a country that is like actually nationalist, like Turkey, for example, if you said something even remotely close to Ataturk, you would get fucking destroyed, okay? You get your ass beat on the streets. And a similar attitude exists in China as well. It's not even, Americans do not understand. Americans don't know what fucking nationalism is. They've never truly experienced it. They don't have that same dog in them. They don't have like a unifying nationalistic mythos. America is a very young country. America just has capitalism. Okay, that's it. Your civic nationalist religion revolves around capitalism.
Just on the issue about the UK.
I can't believe we've derailed today so much for like the last 2 hours, but honestly, I think it was a productive conversation.
And are you clear that the UK will stand behind Denmark, whatever the consequences for Britain? And do you believe that that's the position of the European Union as well?
Yes, I believe that, and the reason why I believe that is due to the strong statement from your Prime Minister. I think it will be repeated by the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Parliament right now. And especially, and that's perhaps even more important in order to convince me, also in close session and the meeting we just have had.
And Minister, you said over the weekend that you...
My MAGA family is starting to say we're owed Greenland because we're giving NATO so much money and the Danish are selfish. My dad says Denmark owes America $3 trillion worth of unsalted peanuts. Fuck! Stop! Dude! Come on, man. Stop baiting. Stop baiting. Chat. Stop. I know. As soon as I fucking read that shit and get mad, you're going to do it more often. Please stop. What do you want me to do? Bring back the top of the hour ad break? At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break, even though there isn't actually a 3-minute ad break, but you can still subscribe. Is that what you want me to do? You want me to start baiting you so you don't do this unproductive shit? God damn it. Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Okay? Your voluntary contributions in the form of a subscription, either a $6 a month subscription or a free one in the form of a Twitch Prime that you can get by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get one free Prime subscription a month, or gifted subscriptions to others, is the only effective way to sponsor or support the Piker Broadcasting Service. PBS is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Thank you, PBS. If you want to learn about tomorrow's news today.
Was surprised by the president's statement, given the meeting that you had with Vice President Vance and Mr. Rubio. What had they led you to believe, and why were you so surprised?
It's not that they have led me to believe anything. It's just that we made an agreement, you know. The meeting we had last week left me with the clear impression that the president honestly and full-heartedly want to acquire Greenland. But we also made it crystal clear that this is a red line. I mean, having said that, we agree to disagree, and the concerns they raised at the meeting and also in public about security in the Arctic is concerns we want to accommodate. And therefore, we agreed that we should move this dialogue from, you know, social media and Truth Social and other arenas into a meeting room where we could discuss. Could there be a solution where we, building on what we already have agreed in the past, the 1951 agreement, etc., the NATO alliance, could do more to give US the assurance that even though we can handle the current situation in Greenland, which we can, and there are no Chinese investments in Greenland, will we also be able to do that in a 10, 15, 20 years perspective? That was what we agreed. I also made it very clear that we are open for this kind of discussion. We are pragmatic, cold-blooded Scandinavian people with a warm heart. But it is not easy when we wake up every morning to new threats. Please convey that message to the president. And therefore, for a second, I thought, we have managed not to...
İnanılmaz. Mugo baba. Amsız mı kaldınız? This guy said, Hassan, Zach, Asmongold, you claim to say that Asmongold is separated from the masses, except you fuck pussy 24/7, whereas Zach Asmongold is jerking off 31, which is the numerical assignment for masturbation in Turkey, as I've talked about before, is masturbating 24/7. He is closer to us. He is saying I am a fake man of the people because I am having sex with women. Kimdi bunu diyen? I'm gonna give you an example. Hold on bir dakika. Hold on. Yok, Mesut Yılmaz değildi. Kimdi lan, amına koyayım? Süleyman Demirel. Okay. Amerika'nın Yozgat'ı. Zamanında Süleyman Demirel'e gidiyorlar. Diyorlar ki genel evleri kapatmamız lazım. Okay. Yeter artık. Devlet kerane işletiyor. Olmaz böyle. Süleyman Demirel dönüyor, diyor ki bizi mi siksinler? Kerhaneleri kapatalım da bizi mi siksinler? Halk bizi mi siksin? One of the Turkish prime ministers, Süleyman Demirel, was asked, because in Turkey is a very unique country. It's a Muslim country, but it owns and operates government brothels, right? Like it's fully legalized. Okay? So it has brothels. And they ask the prime minister, you should close these brothels. Like, this is, moral decay. This is degenerate. Why the fuck do you have brothels? And he turns around and says, okay, we'll close the brothels and what? Have them fuck me instead? Rabbim Cleveland dedi ahsen unaktan. This Turkish chatter is complaining because they've closed the porn sites in Ohio. He's in Ohio, and he's saying it's America's Yozgat, which is like an Ohio of Turkey. And he's saying it reminds him of Turkey because porn sites are closed in Turkey. Dal kalkar, kartal sarkar, kartal salkar, dal kalkar. It was a fucking Turkish tongue twister. So you have brothels but no porn? Yes, bro. Yes. Turkey has fucking brothels but doesn't have pornographic material on websites. Yes. It makes no fucking sense. It literally does not make sense, bro. It doesn't. Stop trying to make sense of it. Turkey, Muslim country, until like, I forget when they actually privatized it, but Turkey is a Muslim country that actually had state-owned enterprise that would make alcohol, okay? And Turks still drink a fuck ton of alcohol. Rakı is a big part of our culture. It's a big part of our dining experience. Tekel is government-owned, state-owned enterprise that is, alcohol factories, like, and cigarettes too.
Solve the problem, but to find a pathway forward. It was disrupted by the statement from the president, and that's a reality of life, and that's why
it was privatized under Tansu Çiller, who was the Thatcher of Turkey. Tansu Çiller, our female prime minister, which, by the way, Turkey got a female prime minister way before America even entertained Hillary Rodham Clinton. So, another common American L, I guess, and a common Turkish W for feminism.
It's so important that all our allies in the NATO alliance and the European Union stand up for these principles to show the American president, you have a desire, you have a vision, you have a request, but you will never be able to achieve that by putting pressure on us. That signal is of crucial importance in order to, I would say, to push the Americans back into the meeting room as we agreed last week.
And just final question, please. Sorry, just final question. It's a really anxious time for the Danes, from the Greenlanders, and indeed for all Europeans. Do you feel vulnerable, and do you also feel betrayed by the US, given that you have been such a close ally of the US and such a good NATO member?
I use the words surprised, and I think I will stay on that. I mean, I have no intention to escalate things. I've had this discussion with the president.
Süleyman Demirel, Alparslan Türkeş, a nationalist politician, is called a son of the Turk. Bülent Ecevit, a center-left politician, is called a son of the people. Necmettin Erbakan, an Islamist politician, is called a son of Muslims. What am I then? A son of a bitch? Yeah, Süleyman Demirel had a lot of funny quotes. He was a funny dude for sure. The same guy that I was talking about with the brothel thing. Yeah, I closed the government-owned brothels, and then who will the public fuck? Me?
In my former capacity as prime minister, and it's a matter of fact that we had casualties in Afghanistan.
Was he good looking? No, not even a little bit, bro. What the? This is what he looked like. That's so funny. You said, was he good looking? No, not even a little bit. Okay, he's so hot. Okay, like going to town on a beanbag chair.
Similar to the U.S. Casualties. At that specific occasion, he said, you made a good argument. I want to repeat that one. And of course, I realize that the Vice President said you could have done many things, proper in the past. Will that define the future? I think it gives you credit. Yes. I mean, you can always count on Denmark, as we always can count on UK. And that's why I have been very, very pleased to visit UK today.
Good morning. The world has become markedly more turbulent in recent weeks.
Are you guys ready for this? Because he's going to say some crazy stuff. What? He still thinks you can reason your way out of this? Yeah, it's very stupid. But Speaking of another man who is going to use his sharp tongue to really give a washing to Donald Trump, and not a lashing, as you would expect, Keir Starmer.
Events are moving fast. And in moments like this, what matters most is being clear about the values and the interests that guide us, even as circumstances change. The United Kingdom has a long history. Our values were not improvised. They were built patiently over time. And while we are pragmatic in how we pursue our interests, we are resolute in defending those values when it matters. So let me begin with the United States. The UK and the US are close allies and close partners. That relationship matters profoundly, not just to our security, but to the prosperity and the stability that people here depend upon. Under President Trump, as under previous presidents, we're determined to keep that relationship strong, constructive, and focused on results. And that approach is delivering. Through sustained engagement, we've seen significant US investment into the UK economy, running into hundreds of billions of pounds, supporting growth, skills, and jobs right across the country. Our cooperation on defence, nuclear capability, and intelligence remains as close and effective as anywhere in the world.
I like that he spends most of the time talking about how awesome it is to be a vassal state for America. That's sick.
Keeping Britain safe in an increasingly dangerous environment. We've secured good trading terms in key sectors, including cars, steel, aerospace, and life sciences, protecting British jobs and manufacturers. That is why we take the approach that we do, because it delivers concrete outcomes in the national interest. I talk regularly to President Trump, and my team is in daily contact with all the key figures in his administration. These relationships matter. They deliver concrete outcomes in the national interest. Mature alliances are not about pretending differences don't exist. They are about addressing them directly, respectfully, and with a focus on results. On Greenland, the right way to approach an issue of this seriousness is through calm discussion between allies. And let's be clear, the security of Greenland matters. And it will matter more as climate change reshapes the Arctic, as sea routes open and strategic competition intensifies. The High North will require greater attention, greater investment, and stronger collective defence. The United States will be central to that effort, and the UK stands ready to contribute fully alongside our allies through NATO. But there is a principle here that cannot...
Dude, it's crazy. He's literally just mapping out exactly why America is going to do whatever it wants to, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, he's even giving the reasoning behind why America's behaving like this. How can you read this as anything but just complete submission? It's just complete submission, dude. Incredible stuff. Oh, we have a long-standing and crucial partnership with America. You know, they control our nuclear arms. We have no power here. And obviously, as climate change worsens, new trade routes will open up by way of Greenland, and we can't have anybody but America control that.
Be set aside, because it goes to the heart of how stable and trusted international cooperation works.
I'm going to be honest with you. If Donald Trump talked the way he was talking about Greenland, but about the UK instead, I think Keir Starmer would have a similar attitude. Like, I think if Donald Trump was like, yep, UK, you're next. I'm taking it by force. It's mine now. I mean, we're basically all, I mean, come on. This is a nation of British people that came here a long time ago. It's mine now. It's ours. Keir Starmer would come out and be like, long-standing security partnerships were merged over mutually agreed results. And as the Prime Minister of the UK, our relationship matters profoundly. And for that reason, I'm saying, yes, we will be a complete vassalized state. We will be a part of the United States of America.
And so any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. That right is fundamental, and we support it. Denmark is a close ally of the United Kingdom and of the United States, a proud NATO member that has stood shoulder to shoulder with us, including at real human cost in recent decades. Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership.
Okay, level 2 hype train. Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. It would be kind of like Taiwan taking China. No, it wouldn't be kind of like Taiwan taking China, because the KMT, like, escaping to Taiwan, the island of Formosa at the time, is much, it's a much more recent phenomena than American prisoners being shipped off, or British prisoners being shipped off to America to create a settler colony. It's been a long time since these were like well-established, firmly defined national boundaries, and also a successful revolutionary war took place in the United States of America.
Not pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
Why does every analogy have to be about China, North Korea, and Russia? This is just like North Korea when talking about something the U.S. is doing right now. I know. Because we're American. Pet Kaya, or I'm unsubbing. Kaya, come here. Come here, lady. Come here, lady. Come here. Here. Come here. There you go. Don't unsub. Come here. Kaya. Okay. Come. Oh, God. She plays with all these other dogs at the gym, and they fucking bite the shit out of her. So her neck, like her entire neck, the fur is all crumpled up with dog saliva. You can't really see from the camera, but it's all like fucking dog saliva. Like, it looks like she's got like slicked back hair around her ears and around her neck. All the fucking dog drool. What's up? What are you smelling? What's up here? Anything of interest? What about this? What about this? Go get it.
It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance, nor is it helpful to frame efforts to strengthen Greenland's security as a justification for economic pressure.
Is that toy BDS?
Such measures hurt British workers, British businesses, and the British economy. And that is why I've been so clear on this issue. A trade war is in no one's interest. And my job is always to act in the UK's national interest. That is why yesterday I spoke to President Trump, to European leaders, and to the Secretary General of NATO.
And you told him you have full confidence that he will do the right thing, right?
To find a solution rooted in partnership.
Bark brand is BDS. IDF uses Bark brand as chew toys for IDF soldiers, ... Sweetie, after a long day of killing children, they have to release their stress. And everybody knows it's Bark brand chew toys that the IDF soldiers use to release their stress.
Facts and mutual respect. Because that is how strong alliances protect shared interests. The same is true on other issues. In the Middle East, we welcome President Trump's focus on sustaining the ceasefire in Gaza and moving on to phase 2. We are open to participating constructively in such efforts. On Ukraine, I can be brief. We strongly support efforts to bring the killing to an end and secure a ceasefire as soon as possible. We recognise President Trump's role in pushing that process forward. And we will work closely with the United States, Ukraine, and our other allies to apply pressure where it belongs on Putin. Finally, let me say why all this matters so directly to people here at home. In today's world, geopolitics is not something that happens somewhere else. It shapes the cost of energy, the price of food, the security of jobs, and the stability that families rely on to plan their lives. When war drives up fuel prices, it's households who feel it first. When supply chains fracture, it's small businesses and working people who absorb the shock. And when instability grows, it's rarely those with the most power who pay the price. That is why this government's approach is rooted in a simple belief that we must use every tool of government, domestic and international, to fight for the interests of ordinary people. At home, that means active government. It means taking responsibility for economic stability so that inflation is controlled, interest rates come down, and family budgets are protected. It means stepping in where markets fail, strengthening resilience, and ensuring that global shocks do not always land on the same people in the same places, the people least able to withstand them. That's why we've taken action to reduce energy bills, to freeze rail fares and prescription charges. But tackling the cost of living today also means engagement beyond our borders. It requires shaping the world around us, not retreating from it. It requires strong alliances, steady diplomacy, and rules that reduce uncertainty rather than amplify it. That is why our commitment to international law and to alliances founded on trust is not abstract or ideological.
Oh my God, I can't.
Prime Minister, many people watching this at home will have been shocked and angry over the weekend.
They ruled the seas once. 13 colonies, bro. Hold this fucking L. 13 colonies. Think about that. The sun never sets on the British Empire. Well, it surely feels like the sun has set now, doesn't it? It's just, it's crazy to see. What a sight to behold.
So-called closest ally is threatening us if we try to stop him illegally annexing Greenland. Is this the most serious crisis in the transatlantic relationship in decades? And how can the US remain our closest ally when it's bullying us like this? And just on tariffs, you say they are completely wrong and it will hurt the British economy. But if Trump does go ahead, to be clear, are you telling the British people that we will have to take that economic pain? And are you planning retaliatory tariffs if that happens?
Thank you, Beth. And firstly, to underscore your point, this has been very badly received across the United Kingdom.
Yes, that's precisely what he's saying, Chatter. I just don't get how he is just a dumbass lip hypocrite. Sounds like he's saying we like what Trump's doing over here, but we don't support his actions over there. I mean, yeah, he's saying, Trump, you were doing great when you were fucking up Venezuela or whoever the fuck you want to destroy, but why are you doing that to Europe? Also, I will roll over and die for you, sir. That's it. That's at the heart of like the international, liberal international order. That's what it is. Trump is treating European allies. Trump is treating European allies like he treats any other country.
We're allies of the United States, and we work closely with them. And therefore, I'm not surprised by the reaction that's been across the United Kingdom. And it is a very serious situation. Our job is to ensure that we find a way forward.
It's not hypocrisy, it's capitalism, says Jason Hickel, one of my favorite posters on this website, professor at ICTA UAB and visiting senior fellow at London School of Economics. Not Jackson Hinkle, Jason Hickel. Unfortunate naming similarity there. The bizarre behavior of the Western states and leaders often seems to betray a moral double standard. He says it's not hypocrisy, it's capitalism. But in fact, it's all perfectly consistent with a single standard, namely the objective of maintaining the conditions for capital accumulation in the core. On Iran, they tell us to support the protesters, but of course they violently brutalize the protesters at home and never support protests against the governments of their own often brutal client states. They say support women's rights, but of course they actively support a genocidal regime that has massacred tens of thousands of women, live streamed to our screens. They say they want to see freedom and democracy, but of course they prop up several repressive dictatorships in the Middle East. They say value international law, but they violate it regularly in spectacular fashion as easily as they breathe. They say they want to see liberation, but their explicit objective is to impose a puppet monarchy with zero real sovereignty, permanently subordinated to the United States and Israel. Why? Because they want to maintain the conditions for capital accumulation in the core. This requires a massive flow of cheap labor and resources from the periphery. To keep it going, they do everything possible to crush any state or movement that seeks real sovereignty, because sovereign development in the South means that the South produces and consumes more for itself, so their resources and labor are less cheaply available for accumulation in the core. This is why they're going after Iran. It's the same reason why they're going after Venezuela and Cuba. It's the same reason they fantasize going to war with China. It's the same reason they invaded Libya and Iraq. The real reason, one of the best examples of this is with China, because if you listen to old World Bank style analysts and the way that they have presented capitalism, the Steven Pinkers of the world, all these academics who talk about the bounties that capitalism has delivered, and I don't mean the bounties that capitalism has delivered that Karl Marx has acknowledged as well. I'm talking about modern capitalism, what some may even consider late stage capitalism, and how it's actually good, right? What do they always say? Capitalism has created a global economy that, by way of these trade partnerships and trade negotiations, has actually greatly uplifted the masses in the global South. These countries that were under previous formations destroyed through colonial plunder have been able to uplift themselves, have been able to modernize, have been able to develop. Now, of course, that development has been stagnant in the periphery as opposed to the imperial core, right? Why is the ACP guy making sense? This is not the ACP guy. This is an actual professor. Oh my God. They just have similar names. China is the one example of a country in the periphery that has been able to take on foreign capital, and by way of implementing a transitional socialist state, redistribute the productive output or all the material gains that they got from said productive output back to improving the material conditions of its population. This is why China is the number one enemy. It's because they were unironically able to have sovereignty, and on top of said sovereignty, they were unironically able to develop their own economy, develop their own country to a degree where it is competitive with the largest superpower on the planet, the United States of America. So, in theory, capitalism, global capitalism has been able to, lift people out of horrible, extreme poverty conditions. And the one place where it did happen, they fucking will never let it go. They will never let it go. They will never stop in their efforts to dominate every country that has been able to actually uplift themselves through this process of global partnership, like global trade. They don't want any other country to also turn into China. That's the biggest fear for Western capitalists. Is Vietnam similar? Yes, Vietnam is also similar to a certain degree. It's the same reason why they invaded Libya and Iraq. It's the same reason why they assassinated Lumumba and Sankara. It's the same reason they prop up Saudi Arabia and the UAE. It's the same reason why they support Israel's genocide. The narrative of double standards presupposes that they have at least some shred of morality, but they do not. For them, there is but one standard, the law of capital. And in the interest of the standard, they will very gladly spit on every human value. They will not shrink from genociding civilians by the tens of thousands, peasants and workers and children. They will not flinch at killing 500,000 people each year with illegal sanctions. They will rape the earth and doom our collective future without a qualm. It is fruitless to appeal to capital, to imperialism in moral terms. The objective is to defeat it. Libertarian guy chimes in, says, only an idiot thinks any of that has anything to do with capitalism. It's nothing but pure statism. But that's it. It's true. I like to still utilize the hypocrisy argument for a lot of liberals because I want to snap them out of this, this concept that they have believed exists. Okay? That's the reason why I say it's hypocrisy, or I use hypocrisy, but hypocrisy is the marketing technique that I'm applying here. But ultimately, yes, this is the grand design. This is what happens when capital remains unchecked, especially when there is no other state power or no other great power out there that has an alternative vision, especially when that other world power, the USSR at least, no longer exists, and therefore American capital and Western capital can go unchecked. What you have experienced since the 90s is a byproduct of capitalism winning and going unopposed. Because capitalism won, and because there were no other alternatives out there, no other great powers out there that were trying to defy the order of international capital, we decided to destroy ourselves in the process. I was born in 2001. I didn't get the fun part. I mean, one could say there's never really been a fun part. But that's it. That's why all these guys are like playing this song and dance, trying to make it seem like there is a liberal international order, as Donald Trump is basically destroying all of the propaganda around that sort of thing by just saying the quiet part out loud over and over and over again. Because in practice, what Donald Trump is doing is not all that dissimilar from the relationship that we've had with Europe in the aftermath of World War II. Okay?
Consistent with our principles and our values, and consistent with our national interest. And the US remains a close ally on defence, on security, and on intelligence, on nuclear capability. We work very closely with the United States, and we must never lose sight of our national interest in that. But we must stand up for our values. We must be clear about the principles that we are applying here, and will continue to do so. On the question of tariffs,
that's why I keep reiterating that, like, a lot of these Western leaders, like, sure, they're cucked to America, but first and foremost, they are cucked to their own version of whatever their own representatives of like international capital looks like in their own countries. They're cucked to capitalism, and America is still the great defender of capitalism around the globe. It is the nation state that keeps this entire global design together. So, as the country that is responsible for the upkeep of global capitalism, they get to have all the benefits. If they want to fucking take over the UK, then they can do so. And Starmer will roll over. Because there is no real sovereignty in any of these countries. These guys are all representatives of the exact same forces, the forces of capital.
What isn't in anybody's interests. And therefore, what I want to do is to avoid a tariff war, because it will be businesses, workers and families across the country that will be hit by a trade war. And therefore, I will do as I've set out, which is to engage with our European allies, with President Trump. And Chris, in response to the second part of your question, I spoke to President Trump yesterday, as I think you all know, and I'll no doubt speak to him again in coming days. Continually, our offices talk all the time, but we must find a pragmatic, sensible, sustained way through this that avoids some of the consequences that will be very serious for our country. Thank you very much, Beth.
So let me just put this to you bluntly. Is Greenland or NATO more essential to the United States national security?
Well,
Chris, that's obviously a false choice. That's a
Not from
maximum.
the perspective of European leaders.
The European leaders will come around and they will
Yeah, he's saying they're dogs. They'll roll over and let us do whatever we want to do.
understand that they need to be under the U.S. security umbrella.
By the way, this is the first person in like Trump's orbit outside of Trump that has actually said, you know, openly that our goal here is to play chicken, and we know they will give in before we have to.
What would happen in Ukraine that if the U.S. pulled its support out? The whole thing would collapse. That the U.S., Kristen, to be clear, since 1980, the U.S. has spent U.S. military spending versus NATO military spending. We have spent $22 trillion more dollars than the Europeans have. That we are peace through strength. And the Europeans now are only trying to play catch up. And that is only through President Trump. President Trump believes in NATO, but he does not believe in the American people being dragged in.
Well, in terms of the cost.
Can you confirm that the president's letter to Norway and then the EU might be preparing retaliatory measures over Greenland? Are you concerned about what that could mean?
Yeah, I don't know anything about the president's letter to Norway, and I think it's a complete canard that the president would be doing this because of the Nobel Prize. The president is looking at Greenland as a strategic asset for the United States. We are not going to outsource.
I mean, Trump said it. like I know that's not the main reason, but it's Trump himself said that. Okay, like, oh, sure, you guys are making it up again. My president is not so fucking stupid and childish that he would send a stupid and childish message like that to the fucking Norwegian leadership. Oh, he did do. Okay, well then it's good. He was projecting force once again. Norway needs to clean up its act. It's looking all oiled up over there. We're calling it White Venezuela. Do with that information what you will.
Our hemispheric security to anyone else.
Great. I think that'll probably be the last one for today, guys.
I think it would be very unwise. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Mr. Keir Starmer hitting back at President Trump's threats to impose tariffs on the UK and 7 other European countries in the ongoing row over the future of Greece.
Yeah, we know it was real because after the Norwegian prime minister pointed to him that the Norwegian government doesn't control the Nobel Committee, Trump said that he's lying. We already own Greenland in all but name. That's what European leaders keep saying over and over, but they keep begging Trump to let them maintain face. Trump is telling them he doesn't care about their self-respect, give over the island. Exactly. That is precisely what's going on. Trump wants to humiliate the European continent. I don't know for what reason. I don't understand it, which is why I'm saying, who knows what the purpose is here? But that's what it is. Also, I went viral in China. Jealous. What you consider to be viral in China is a regular afternoon for me, okay? Michael from Pennsylvania, not Michael from Beijing, not Michael from Chongqing. Michael from Pennsylvania. Here you are, never blessed by Chinese soil, okay? Just saying. Just saying. You might go viral in China, but at least I've been to China. And we'll be going back soon. Okay, Hong Kong Hossie. I only went there to see what the one-party, two-systems design looked like. And it's clear to me that unification is an absolute necessity. Full-blown unification. Supporter of the second system, disgusting? Never. Never. This is ridiculous. Never.
Greenland. Well, let's bring in our security.
Also, you're hating from the outside, okay? You're not in the club, okay? You're not in the has been to China club.
Damn, this guy's good.